forgive you. I give into you. You stole my love, but I forgive you. I
Hello. Hello. Oh, I can't see YouTube chat. That's not good. I'll have to pop it out. Hold on. Hold on. I'm sure because I had to rush so much. We're having some things I just gotta fix, clearly. There we go. Now I can see it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Hi. Hi. Sorry, I was a little late there. Just had to get things together. Had to get things prepared. Yeah. Just had to get things going. You know, sometimes it takes a little bit of work sometimes to get everything together. Oh, hi guys. How are you? Welcome in. Hi everybody, my name is Roy Chiato, like a macchiato. I'm a coffee-fueled bunny host with a serious passion for voice acting, and I absolutely love working out, in case you couldn't tell. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the stream. I hope you're all doing fantastic today. What's today? Thursday. Happy Thursday. Hey. Narina. Hey, thank you for the 2 years. Well, hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Draw a PNG YouTuber. Ooh. Well, that sounds like fun. Wow. I love that. I love that. Guys, what's going on tonight? Happy Thursday. Over halfway through June. This is kind of crazy. Because it's like my Monday today. So I'm like thinking about how deep into the month we are already. That's insane. Yeah, happy Thursday. Of course. Yeah. So, guys, we are continuing the Resident Evil Retrospective today. We have this series of videos that we started watching a couple weeks ago. And specifically, what we're going to be doing is watching through these videos after we play the games pertaining to them. So we did Resident Evil 1, then we did Resident Evil 1 Remake, and then we watched the video. Then we do Resident Evil 0, now we watch the video. And then Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and so on and so on and so on. So that is how we're going to be doing all of these different retrospectives. Gives us kind of like a nice breathing room between games. That way it's not just like Resident Evil, Resident Evil, Resident Evil over and over and over again. So very fortunate that the YouTuber that I reached out to was super on board for it. I'm really excited because these are the same videos that we reacted to for Yakuza, for anybody that was in the Discord before with us. Super fun times. Really, really like these videos for like pausing, yapping, talking, vibing, thriving, and potentially surviving. What's going on, Banshee? Actually, since Banshee's here, good thing I can bring up. Good thing I can bring up now. Banshee, I'm gonna put you in the spotlight for a second. Can we get a shot for Banshee while I make out with him aggressively? So you guys may have noticed there's something missing from my throne. You guys may have noticed there's something missing from my throne. So we were finally able to order a Nintendo Switch 2. We were able to order a Nintendo Switch 2. And a big reason for this, he didn't buy it for me. I'm going to explain. Don't worry. I'm going to explain. Now, Banshee received an email that let him purchase the Switch 2, but since he had one purchased for him already, he was like, you know what? Hey, Roy, I know you're looking for a Switch 2. So he slid me over that link. We got that going. So Switch 2 in a couple of days. Yippee! So all that money that I had saved up, it went to the Switch 2, just like it was supposed to. So if you guys donated to that on Throne or supported that or anything along those lines, thank you, because it's official. We were able to purchase the Switch 2, and I'll take a picture of it when it shows up. But like I said, it should be here probably by the end of the month. So, yippee! Very excited for that. Almost as excited as I am to bite into this apple. Apple. It's so close to being an 8. I'm going to give it a 7. We're going to give it a 7. We're gonna give it a 7. Just a 7. It's so close to being an 8. It needed a little bit more flavor. But good crunch, good mouthfeel. It's got the juice. It's got a good taste, but it's just not super strong. You know? Better than yesterday's. We'll take that. Buy my Adam's apple. Banshee. That comes after stream, okay? All right. I'll be sure to leave plenty of marks. Anyway, yeah, like I said, sorry guys, I was late. Had a few things left over to finish up from work, and then I had to set up the waiting room. And yeah, so sometimes it happens. I promise you I am okay, aside from being tired. I'm good. I'm good. And also, like I said, in case people are worried about me being tired, because I think a couple of people may have mentioned it in some passing by chats, I promise you the tiredness is going to get better in the near future, because my work schedule changes at the beginning of July. We'll have off on Fridays and Saturdays, so it'll be way easier for me to have days to just sleep. Catch up on my sleep debt, you know? No stress between. Yeah, it's all good vibes. It's all good times. So I'm very much enjoying how we've been doing things so far. 5 streams a week. While it does feel like I'm really pushing sometimes, I really like getting to spend time with you guys. And if you guys like spending more time with me too, I'll definitely gladly keep doing them. So how do you rate your Apple 7 out of 10 today on the totally legit PR scale? This one's a little bit harder. I might need to get back to you on that one. I might say Wild Force, but I think that's too low for Wild Force. So yeah, that's a tough one. Maybe Dino Charge Season 1. Down, Roy? What did I do? I thought was it because of this? Was that why? What's up, Red Dragon? Welcome to the stream. Apple. Always Apple. Always Apple. I mustn't hear such things. The Apple Crunch? That's crazy. Because you and Banshee? Oh, my bad. It'll happen again. Anyway. Apple's apparently better than Red Samurai Apple and Lightspeed Apple. Yeah, I would say so. I'd say so. It's pretty tasty. It's pretty tasty. Yeah, not because of the Apple. That's crazy. Insane. But guys, we got a lot of really cool stuff planned for next week. I'm already starting to work on the schedule. We've got a cooking stream. So I do have a cooking stream happening next week, which is going to be awesome. I don't think I've done a cooking stream before. I think I've only done baking streams. So we're doing a cooking stream specifically, which I'm very excited about, you know? Hey, Necromancer, thank you so much for the super. A wild thought I had for RE0 is it's the first and only game Rebecca is playable in, and in general, she's the worst one to play as statistically. Well, she's technically playable in Resident Evil Remake, briefly, and same with Resident Evil 1, you know? Kodai Ryu! Hey, thank you so much for the raid over on the Twitch side. Hey, thank you so much. Welcome in, Raiders. My name's Roy Chiato, like a macchiato. I am a coffee-fueled bunny host with a serious passion for voice acting, and I love working out, in case you couldn't tell. So, yes, we are cooking a couple things, and I don't know what I'm cooking specifically. My guest has not told me yet. I should probably bother him and ask him what we're cooking, so I can, like, find a recipe and or ingredients to make sure that it's something that I can make. But I promise you it's a guest that I've done stuff with before. I've had fun with them before. We've done things with them before. And yeah, you guys will have a blast. But aside from that, next week starts Resident Evil 2. You guys voted for Claire in Resident Evil Original and for Leon in Resident Evil Remake. So we're going to start next week with Claire in Resident Evil 2. So that'll be really fun. I don't think I've actually ever played Claire's A scenario in Resident Evil 2 Original. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. That'll be like, because like I used to speedrun Resident Evil 2 Original and Remake, but only as Leon. So it's gonna be like, ooh, oh, it's gonna be like one of those. So I'm really excited to see what the game feels like. Resident Evil 2 Original is one of my favorite games of all time. It's probably my favorite Resident Evil game, just because it's just so good. You know, there's so much content, but like I also barely played the content. I just always really liked it, you know? Hey, thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. So that'll be happening, and then I think we're gonna take a week off from Blueprints, but I do want to start. I'm torn between starting either Date Everything or Coffee Talks or Coffee Talk. I can't remember if it's Talks or Talk, because for Coffee Talk at least, I was talking with Uki, and Uki was playing Coffee Talk 2 and was very surprised to hear that I'd never played it. And I was like, you know what? You offer a valid point, sexy purple man. So I am very excited for that. And I actually own them already. So I would like Coffee Talks. Then again, I hate games like Date Everything, so I'm biased. Oh, hate games like Date Everything. Interesting. Well, I'll definitely do some research and I'll see what's going on. Finances especially, because it's not like Date Everything is super expensive, but $30 is still $30, you know? And I did just buy the Switch 2, so I might have to play around and just go, oh, you know what? Coffee Talks is something I already own. But I'll talk to Jun about it, the manager, and we'll see what's going on, and we'll see what we can plan and what does better. Because sometimes I like playing games when they come out, not just like, you know, a year down the line of the retro. So, but I do know one of the things I want to play on the Switch 2 when we get that in is Luigi's Mansion. Anybody a Luigi's Mansion fan? Anyone a Luigi's Mansion fan? Because I love Luigi's Mansion. Luigi's Mansion is one of my favorite GameCube games. I like it even more than Super Mario Sunshine. I have not played it since like I think since I was a kid. So it's been a minute. But I really want to play it because I know it's on the GameCube Virtual Console on the Switch 2. So I think I'm definitely gonna plan that out. It's ironic because we had already started Sunshine for summer, and already it's on the Switch Virtual Console, so I can't just like port it over because we have it on the 3D All-Stars collection. Yeah. Luigi's Mansion's cool. I still haven't played Luigi's Mansion 2 or 3, but I think this will be a really good way for me to kind of like squeeze into playing 2 and 3 eventually. Because I know both of them are on Switch, because 2 got ported to the Switch and 3 is just on Switch. And then playing both of those on Switch 2 will just make them an even better experience. So if there were any slowdown issues, any frame rate issues, any pop-ins or stuttering, the Switch 2 will make it even better. And I'm actually really excited for that. That's something like, I feel like I avoided my Switch, except for like playing like Mario Kart 8. You know what I mean? I feel like I avoided playing on my Switch, except for Mario Kart 8, for so many games. Oh, and what else did we play? Animal Crossing. So it just feels like there weren't as many games that I really wanted to dive into because I was so worried about them getting like not having the performance up. Like, I know a lot of you really want me to play Legends Arceus or Arceus. I don't know how to pronounce it, one of the two. So I'm excited to finally be able to play that. I do still want to play Pokemon X and Y at some point, but that's not on Switch 2. If it was, I think that would be dope. But there's a lot of Pokemon games on Switch 2's Virtual Console, so I'm excited for that. Have I played Dark Moon? No? I don't think so. That's the RPG series that was on PS2, right? Dark Moon. Wait. Oh, wait, Dark Moon, not Dark Cloud. Oh my God. Dark Moon as in Luigi's Mansion. No, I've only played Luigi's Mansion 1. Luigi's Mansion 1 is the only Luigi's Mansion that I've played. But I really liked it because it reminded me of Resident Evil. Dark Cloud? No. I mistook what someone said. Someone said Dark Moon, and I misread it as Dark Cloud. And I was like, no, I've never played that series. Those RPGs, right? And then I reread and I was like, oh, you said Dark Moon. My bad, Repro. My bad. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I definitely do want to play that. It's okay, you meant Dark Cloud. I've never played them, so I've got no idea. I've just never touched them, ever. Or Legend of Dragoon. I've also never played Legend of Dragoon. I am hoping for a Steam port of that at some point, or a PS5 port, or just an HD remaster / remake, like in the same way that we're getting Final Fantasy Tactics, because I do want to play those. I think that would be super fun. Both versions of saying Arceus are correct, depending on your accent. Ooh. Oh, both of them are? Oh, I'll have to double check then. I'll add those to my ever-growing list of RPGs to play in Discord. Yeah. Hi, Blake. Hi. Oh, I haven't really said hi to everybody. I got so, like, wound up with, like, having a bite of my apple and then talking about biting Banshee and then thanking Banshee and then biting him in thanks for helping me obtain a Switch 2, which will be here in, like, a week or so. Very excited for that. But I didn't really get a chance to say hi to everybody. So, guys, if you want your own personalized greeting, in the words of my friend Porcelain Maid Joel, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. Oh, and thanks for the follow. Hi. Yippee! We do love some hellos. Nice little hellos to get the stream started, kind of thing, you know. Wah! All right, we're gonna start on the YouTube side. No worries. Hi, Multi-Hit Mage. Hi, Sugar Fairy. Hi, Chami. Hi, Luna. Hi, Necromancer. Hi, Ruby. Hi, Michaela. Hi, Thorn. First time kind of shy. Listen, you know what they say. Apple. Hi, Zephyr. Hi, Jake Oso. Hi, Ignatius. And then on the Twitch side, I know we've got a couple people too. We've got Blake. We've got BB Wolf Jr. We've got Crab. We've got, I see you, Tree. We've got Zilla. We've got Cracker. If Banshee's still here, Banshee, hello. I think Jungos was here earlier. Did I see Jungos? I know Belmore's here. Skater Boy Reki, hello. We've got Cold Eye Ryu with the raid from earlier. We've got Cozy Hermit, Scourges, Air Pilot, Red Dragon MA. Is that it? Did I get everybody? Yule, Cool Kid, Nightmare Hero Brian. Hi. Hi, guys. And a Sugar Fairy. Are you on both sides? Are you on Twitch and YouTube? That's crazy. That's a little bit crazy. Hi, Chara. Oh, you got braces? Hi, Lila. Is it Lila or Lila? Hi, Minuki. I like your model. It's very neat. Well, hi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love my model too. I'm very proud of the progress we were all able to make, and I'm glad that it fits me so much better, you know? Also, nice Joe Cat emote. I love Joe. Joe Cat's really nice. How's it going tonight? Not too bad. Hey, what's up, Brandon? Hi, welcome in. We're just kind of welcoming everybody because I wanted to give everybody a second to kind of vibe, thrive, and survive before we start up the video, because it's going to be a big yapping session. We're going to be reacting to the Resident Evil 0 retrospective, seeing some behind the scenes stuff, and just talking about the game as a whole now that we finished it. For clarity, Def take my frothing. Oh yeah, Def play that for older games as a joke. They are. Oh, as the joke, they are. I know not everything fits your style, and especially not dangle long RPG like Dragoon. So, to be fair, in your defense, Repro, because I do love defending you. Also, just maybe want to lift you up, you know. Anyway, I've heard nothing but amazing things about Legend of the Dragoon, so that's already been on my radar for a while. I just didn't know that it was on PS5. I think it's just like, I'm always like, man, I want to play more stuff on Steam. You know, I want to work on some of these more achievements in Steam. But Dark Cloud, I just don't think I knew was there. So, yeah, I can always add it. You got Reki from Skate the Infinity? Damn right. Can't go wrong with the Tokusatsu RPG complete with Henshin! Absolutely. What's up, Sinister? Hi. Yapping. We do love yapping. Anybody here a fan of yapping? Where are my yappers at? Joe's the sweetest. Yeah, they really are. Yeah, they're a sweetie pie. I very much like them. Achievement sound go burr. Yeah, you get the dunk. Because it's not the Xbox 360 achievement or like just Xbox in general achievement, but it is a very nice because it's almost like a message from Steam. Love yapping. Joe Taskaru. Well, we're talking about Joe Cat. Different Joe, but still Joe. I could talk all day about Power Rangers. Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I definitely need to start setting up the next ones. Is this stream an Xbox? It could be. You never know. I do need to set up my next Power Ranger stream because I don't have another one planned yet. But then again, like we just did one this week. We literally just did one on Tuesday, so it's not like it's been a long time since we've done one. But I'll definitely get more of the boys back for next time for another Power Ranger stream in the future, because we'll be able to finish Mighty Morphin Season 3. I know in like a week or two, I'm probably going to try and kidnap Zanny for Power Rangers Turbo. I kind of like having him available for the non-group ones because we started it without the group ones. So kind of keeping that going between Zanny and I feels really good. We've got Oshi Sentai V-Ranger. We have to set up a SPD for that. I'm sure there's other ones. Lots of cool stuff. Is there anything that I haven't done recently that you guys have been really looking forward to? Like games? Like obviously I already talked about Date Everything and I kind of want to play it. I just don't know when I'll be able to fit it in or when I'll be able to afford it properly. I know you're going through Kamen Rider, but have you ever seen Garo? I am very familiar with Garo, but I haven't actually ever watched it. Because back in the day, Final Fantasy XIV was running a cross campaign with Garo, where if you played the PvP in 14, you would get Garo armor. And that was forever ago, and I was always curious. I was like, whoa, what's Garo? This armor is awesome. And then I looked up Garo, and I was made familiar with Garo. It's fun to watch. I was catching up on them. Yay! I'm glad. It actually makes me really happy that there are so many of those VODs now, because like I essentially have 3 different sessions now going on. We've got Oshi Sentai with Andrea and Kane, and we're up to SPD. We've got hashtag Incubun with Zanny and myself just going through casually. And then we've got, I need like a group name. I need a name for all these men, you know? The indoctrinates. the bunny apprentices. Something like that, right? I gotta go back to watching SPD then. Apparently so. We'll get there. We'll get there. Purple guys. There are a lot of purple. Athena. Ruse really likes purple, but I don't know if I would consider him a purple person. Zanny. Haka. Vanta. Joel has some purple on his design, though I consider him more pink than purple. I need some pink, you know? I need some pink in there. The power-minded Croup. Roy's Ranger Academy. Wait, I really like that one. Roy's Ranger Academy. Ooh. I really like that. Wait a minute. That's not bad. Hi, Bun. Too much purple. Gotta run them through the wash so they fade colors a little bit. Listen, speaking of purple, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Guys, in case you didn't know, tomorrow's new audio roleplay comes out with a purple friend of mine, Uki Violetta. Very excited for that. So if you didn't know, I do audio roleplay. Comes out every Friday on my audio roleplay channel. You can type in !VA in chat and you'll get a link to the voice acting channel. Next is in the Bunny Bounce Club. It's a lot of passionate loving rather than like, I'm trying to think of like the best way to describe it. It's the Bunny Bounce Club with Uki and I. You know what you're getting into. Have fun. I'm really excited. Uki and I recorded this like a couple weeks ago, I think. So we've kind of just been sitting on it, like waiting, you know? So I'm really excited. Clappy, perfect segue. Listen, I saw you, Bun, and I was like, you know what? Now is the perfect time to segue. Sounds like y'all had fun recording it. It's so funny because like all of July is already planned. But now I have to start planning August, and I'm like, okay, who do I kidnap? Should we kidnap Uki again? And like, because Vanta and I made a joke of working out, and then Uki is like also working out with us. Love not being able to spell. Happens with the rest of us. That lined up great for you? I think so too. I'm looking forward to it as always. Yeah. No, it's really great. We have a lot of really cool stuff planned. I have a brand new project idea that I'm launching at the end of July as well. It's something that I've actively talked about in chat before. I don't want to give too much of it away, but if you've been with the audio roleplay channel, the voice acting channel since I started it, you will have something very awesome to look forward to, let me tell you. So, very excited for that. Very, very excited. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That's all you guys get. And you get another apple. Apple. Mm-hmm. Green apple? Nope. I only eat red apples. I like Honeycrisp. Mm-hmm. But I do think green apples are pretty good for like baking, like apple pie. Mm-hmm. But we still want to know? You'll know. Trust me. I like the yellow ones. Ooh. When's the last time I had a yellow apple? Wait, I gotta think about this. I gotta search the mind palace. I'm like, can't remember. It's gone. Lost to history. Pink lady apples are really sweet. Those are pretty good too. Yeah, I think those are pretty nice. Apple pie sounds really good right now. I'm trying to be good with like eating. I think I was grossly under my calorie requirement. Not grossly. I was like 300 or 400 under where I should have been. So I definitely woke up hungry today, but I also haven't had that much food today. I think I have to have another like 800, 900 calories after stream. You can have apple pie as a treat. Not all the time. I can have it maybe like once a week, but I already had like some dessert this week. So, Roy's Mind Palace, but it's Blueprints Mansion. I hate it here. Blueprints is so hard, man. Oh my gosh. I am really liking it, but I think we're going to take a break from it next week so we can give my brain time to like recover. I can feel the wrinkles forming in my brain every time I just boot up Blueprints. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, if we put this room here, and I grab this room, and I calculate the number of steps. Okay, now we have to do a logic puzzle here. This is false, which means this is true, which means this is false, which means the gems are in this. I'm like, get me out of here. I go to the gym so I don't have to show off my brain. So I can show off, something else. Ooh. Love the picture word puzzle, but that's so valid. I get you. Take care of yourself? No. There's no saving me. And if I'm already this far gone, then why not just see how bad I can get? What do you mean, no? Anyway, shkapow! Mods! Treat yourself to an apple. Treat yourself to an apple, mods. Okay. Then he runs. That's crazy. I've never run from a fight in my entire life. I'm Roy Chiato, like a macchiato, a coffee-fueled bunny host with a serious passion for voice acting, and I love working out, in case you couldn't tell. Yeah. How tall are you, Roy? 5'9". Who wants to know? Who wants to know? Me. So I know how far I gotta jump. Oh. Anyway, guys, you ready to start the retrospective on Resident Evil 0? I still love that we started this before Resident Evil 9 got announced. So it feels normal already. And it makes me really happy because I reached out to the creator of these videos and they were totally okay with me reacting to them. And they have up to Resident Evil 4 done. So we have like another like 2 or 3 months worth of stuff to do because we're going to start Resident Evil 2 Classic next week. We're playing as Claire. And then the week after is Resident Evil 2 Remake as Leon. And then we watch the RE2 recap or the RE2 retrospective. I'm so curious about the RE9 plot wise and shit. I'm so excited that they made a reference at all to Outbreak because it's Alicia mods, wipe the stream. It's Alyssa Ashcroft's daughter. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, ain't no one talk about that. That's crazy, wild, wacky, inflatable arm flailing too, man. But almost as wacky as
Resident Evil 0 is an
wait, that actually transitioned so well.
New things.
Wait, pause. Lamau. Guess we gotta play Outbreak. I don't want to play Outbreak unless we get like an Outbreak Steam port, because the only way I'd want to play Outbreak is if I play it on some sort of alternate playing device that is allowed with online play. So I'm praying that we get Outbreak HD and just ported to Steam with proximity chat, like Repo or Among Us or DuckDuckGoose or any of those other proximity chat games. You know, that's what we need. Lethal Company. There we go. There's another one. Clip that. Clip this. Anyway. Anyway, let's continue.
Resident Evil 0
True. It is, in fact, Resident Evil 0.
is an ambitious game, one that tries new things and shoots for the stars. That's a respected effort in a series that, up to this point, has had nothing but great successes.
Okay, all right. I will plainly say, before we dive too deeply into this, I will talk about my experience with Resident Evil 0. We played it for the first time, or I should say finished it for the first time last week. We played it in one session. It took us almost 10 hours for my first playthrough. I think we died 3 or 4 times. One was because I didn't have enough ammo to kill the centipede, so I was like, oh, uh-oh. Because I gave Rebecca the grenade launcher because I didn't expect her to get kidnapped. And then there were 2 other times she got kidnapped and we had to save her, and I was like, oh. Anyway, so after we finished Resident Evil 0, I give it like a solid, like, it's like a high C, low B, because it's like I had a lot to complain about with Resident Evil 0. I really did. But it's such a shame because it has such a good skeleton. It's got such a good baseline idea that's just bogged down by like some other really stupid stuff. The inventory management is stupid. It should have just been item boxes. It really should have just been item boxes. Only having 6 inventory slots in each person's thing, but then having some items take up multiple slots felt so egregiously bad. And I know everyone says that, but it just felt so garbage, especially going into the final boss. I think the final boss was kind of underwhelming from a Resident Evil perspective. I think killing the final boss with literally sunlight was kind of just weird. You know, there wasn't a rocket launcher, and I was kind of sad about that. Because it feels like it's always a Resident Evil staple that, like, kill the big bad with a rocket launcher at the end. It's just as simple as that. Unless you're Resident Evil 3, and then you can say, you want stars? I'll give you stars. And then you walk Nemesis down with a magnum as Jill because it's super badass. That's acceptable. But yeah, I really didn't like the rescue missions either, because Rebecca gets like either kidnapped or put in a position where Billy has to go rescue her like 2 or 3 times, and it felt really bad both times. The centipede was the first one, really didn't like that. The second one with her falling down the floor, I had no idea where the room was. She almost fell through the floor again to her death because I just didn't know where that was. I wish it was a little bit easier to find that because I just didn't explore that side of the house yet, you know? Oh, and then just a mechanic thing. We were in the final area in the game, which was like the water treatment facility. And Billy got grappled by a frog. And because I was trying to conserve ammo, I had Rebecca with no weapons equipped. Because I was trying to conserve ammo because I figured we were getting close to the final boss. Billy got grappled by a frog from a mile away. It was really far. He was full health, and Rebecca had items in her inventory. With Billy grappled, the game did not let me change characters. It did not let me go into the menu, and I just had to watch Billy get pulled across the screen from full health, and Rebecca walk up to it and do nothing. And I lost like 20 minutes of progress. And I had heals in my inventory too. It's just I couldn't open them. It was just an insta-kill. So it happens. It happens. Yeah, the grapple range, listen, it gives Zangief's light SPD a run for its money, let me tell you. It's too real, brother. That's all I'm saying. But I also didn't love the enemy designs in Zero. We only saw frogs like twice. Why weren't they just hunter gammas? Like normal hunters were there in the game. Hunters were there in several occasions where I think they were genuinely scary. Loved it. It was great. But why weren't the frogs just hunter gammas? I didn't get that. Why were they just giant? Why were they not hunter gammas? I don't get that. The monkeys sucked. The monkeys were garbage. Hated the monkeys. They were so bad to deal with. I feel like I got stun locked from them all the time. And I think that's it. Yeah. So that's why it's like Resident Evil 0 was fun. It has some really obvious flaws. I had some specific situations that I was very frustrated by. And I have pretty like generic complaints that everybody else has. It's still a good game. I give it like a high C, low B. I still think it's probably worth a play. I wish it had real co-op with it. I think that would have been really cool to add in the Steam port. Would have been really nice if you could like simultaneously explore the mansion while your teammate was also exploring the mansion. So anyway, enough rambling. Now you know my opinion on Resident Evil 0. Let us continue with the retrospective.
But all of its attempts to change the formula, to reinvent the wheel,
Hi, Galaxy.
In failure.
We're doing
the
well.
game
How are
attempts
you?
to change the foundation
Hi,
of the series
sweetie.
by introducing new mechanics, changing old ones, and shifting the dynamic of what a Resident Evil game is.
Also, Billy is just really hot. Like, look at this man. That's why I cosplayed him for Resident Evil 0. Like, he's just so hot.
These additions and changes.
The video's a little quiet. It shouldn't be. It's at max volume. Does the video have subtitles? I can put subtitles on. I could turn it up a little bit more.
Don't really
Is that better?
breed new results, though. They only serve to break down what already worked.
Is that better?
And effectively make it worse. Its removal of the item box system from previous games
Seems good to me. Okay.
results in nothing but frustration, as
We literally just talked about that. 100% agree. It's better? Fantastic. Much better, thank you. No, thank you for asking. Because, again, we want everybody to have a good experience, and especially if you're a VOD watcher. We want it to be good from the beginning. So, very good point. The exclusion of the item boxes feels sinful. Yeah.
trying
I can
to
read so I can,
manage
how
your
I can hear.
inventory
That's
while
so me. I wish
items are
everything was
spread
subtitles.
across a massive environment becomes more infuriating as the game goes on.
Yeah.
The character switching system can be fun and ingenious at certain points.
Yes.
While its technology is certainly impressive, it expands upon the issues that Code Veronica had, making those even more apparent and worse.
Oh yeah, because your favorite son also has a video about Code Veronica, and I know one of their big complaints about Code Veronica, as is a lot of people's problem with Code Veronica. There's no indication when you're playing Code Veronica that you're gonna switch to Chris, and then when you are playing as Chris, there's no indication that you're going to swap back to Claire. And then when you swap back to Chris after playing as Claire, you think that everything is going to be different, and it's actually not. So then you prep for it and you did the wrong thing, and it just screws you over inventory wise. Also, the plane tyrants sucked. Anyway.
The game at least has the fact that it is still a pretty gorgeous survival horror game on its side, though.
Very much
While
agree
its
with that.
story
Very
isn't
pretty
the most intriguing.
Resident Evil. Not my favorite settings. I think the training facility were great. Some of the treatment facility was really good, but the lab was just weird. The lab was just a really weird layout that I didn't like, and I just felt like I was kind of in Resident Evil 2, but like not the good parts. Because it wasn't actually the lab, it was like still a house, you know? The water treatment felt like Dead Lab from Resident Evil 3, but without as much carnage. If it had like a little bit more spook factor to it, I think it would have been perfect. Or maybe like slightly spookier music. But still, I do agree. I think the environments in Resident Evil 0 are actually very good for the most part.
It gets the job done.
But Jasmina, hey, take care.
Grotesque, broken down, ruined, and slimy. But the game overall feels like kind of an affront to the entries that came before it. I love the simplicity in the first few Resident Evil games.
I don't know about affront. That feels a bit egregious.
The design of those games gives the player uncomplicated mechanics, and the player's choices make those mechanics
100%.
have depth. The systems in the first few games in the
Resident
series
Evil 2!
are not incredibly varied. It's what was done with those simple systems that makes them impressive. These games have clean
We can play that next week. I'm
like
so excited.
a tidy room that has just been organized. The sheets are fresh, and everything is in its proper place.
Resident Evil 3 is so good. If you've only played Resident Evil 3 Remake, please go back and play Resident Evil 3 Original. So good. It's available on GOG, and it's coming to PS5 soon. I think we're going to be playing the GOG version because the PS5 versions won't be out.
In contrast, Resident Evil 0 feels messy. McDonald's cups strewn across the floor. Fast.
What? Hey, thanks for the follow. Did he just say McDonald's cups along the floor? Listen, who got McDonald's and didn't get me some? Has anyone had those new like chicken tenders? I'm actually curious how they are. I could go for some McDonald's. I had a day. Anyway, thanks for the follow. Welcome in.
Food bags crumpled up in the corner, roaches crawling on the ceiling. It feels like chaos when you compare this game to the first few entries in the series.
Okay. I think okay, I understand what he's saying because like when you play like Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 and Code Veronica, the level of like disgust is more in the terms of like horror gore, and it's like tons of people died here, tons of people were murdered, so there's like body parts and blood and carnage. Whereas Resident Evil 0 kind of goes for a gross approach. I think I get what they're saying now. I get that.
And at the end of the day, this game just has a ton of problems. Some of them lie in the balance of the enemies. Some of them...
Yes! Absolutely. Fuck the leech guys and the monkeys. I hate them.
...lie in the story.
Also, the centipede boss can eat my ass for not letting me kill it. And it needing, like, every single grenade round and all of the shotgun ammo I had and barely being able to save Rebecca.
And some of them come from the new mechanics that are introduced.
Real.
So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'll be diving deep into Resident Evil 0 and talking about gameplay, story, mechanics, and everything in between.
Also, too many enemies respawned. I will also say that too many enemies were respawning.
If you haven't watched my previous videos on the Resident Evil series, you can check them out in this playlist at the top of your screen.
Yippee!
If you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like as it really helps the video's performance. Plus, it's free.
You got it.
If you do enjoy throwing away your hard-earned cash, subscribe to my Patreon, where I'm currently watching the Resident Evil movies and exclusively covering them over there.
Oh, that's an interesting thing, because I haven't seen all the Resident Evil movies.
Hey, Dad, it's me, your favorite son, and today
It's our favorite
I'd like
son!
to talk about Resident Evil 0.
Which movies, though? Ooh, that's a good point. Because there's the CG movies, which some of those are good. And then there's the live action ones where one of those is good. Yeah, guys, be sure to give love to your favorite son.
Before we continue with the video,
I've never seen him before. I did not know this is what he looked like. Nice hair. Very striking eyes. What the heck? Well done.
public service announcement to make, because I know this channel is all about the dads, but with Mother's Day coming up, it's...
Oh, is this just an ad for Mother's Day? This is an ad for Mother's Day. Okay. Get your bag on Mother's Day with Raycon. Support your favorite son. Check the YouTube description for their original link to the video so you can support them.
To talk about the
There we go.
development of Resident Evil 0, we need to go back before Code Veronica was even released. During the summer of 1998, the idea came up to create a Resident Evil game where players could swap back and forth between two characters at will.
And on the N64.
PlayStation didn't have the capabilities to support these mechanics, so Capcom had to look towards the N64.
Which is crazy to think about. Because like when you look side by side at the PlayStation 1 versus the N64, you know? What? What do you mean the PlayStation 1 can't swap back and forth between characters and the N64 can? The N64 couldn't even run Donkey Kong 64. You needed the expansion pack with more RAM. That is crazy. I don't know what happened in the development cycle of that they had to go to the N64, but it is mind-blowing.
This is where the game was originally planned and developed. Koji Oda was set to be the director of this entry. Flagship and a few others at Capcom returned to create the scenario for the game. The beginning of Resident Evil was meant to be set on a train, which only took up about a sixth of the game. But this version of the game didn't last long because the team soon encountered a ton of problems with the N64's capabilities.
Surprise, surprise. It had to do with loading? Ooh.
Since they couldn't fit everything they needed to on one cartridge, they were looking for a more powerful system. Once the GameCube was announced by Nintendo, development had to shift entirely to that platform.
And then they had 2 discs, which is really funny to me because when you think of like GameCube, there's what, like 5 or 6 games that are 2 discs? It's like Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 0, Tales of Symphonia, Skies of Arcadia. Is that it? That might be it. And Resident Evil were 3 of them.
Most of the scenario, story, and characters were kept, but everything else had to be rebuilt from the ground up.
I mean,
the Nintendo 64 version of the game was revealed at an early Tokyo Game
I do remember
show,
seeing this footage
but for a
too.
while, fans were wondering what even happened to this project, and it was mostly radio silence on Capcom's end.
Which kind of sucks, but at the same time is like, we get in the same thing now. Funny enough, Capcom repeated this with Pragmata. I just realized that. When it's too early to reveal a game, I think this is like a big downfall nowadays, and we still have this problem now. When a game is revealed, I'm very much like, I want to see this game within a year, or don't tell me about it. Like, Capcom slam dunk with the announcement of Resident Evil 9, because it comes out in February. That is, what is that? 8 months away? Less than a year, and on my debut anniversary. Fantastic. But like for games like, look at the Elder Scrolls 6. The Elder Scrolls 6 was announced like, what, 7 years ago? That's insane. But stuff like, yeah, if it's barely in concept and like barely even functioning, don't show me it. I don't want to see it. So.
They revealed the logo at a press event.
Lord of the Rings?
But
Oh, I remember
was
that
it
one. There we
for
go.
a long time, until the shift in platforms was finally announced. After years of development and a shift in direction, Resident Evil 0
Scott here, what's up?
was
Hey,
released
what's up,
for
William?
the Nintendo GameCube on November 12th, 2002 in North America, November 21st, 2002 in Japan, February...
Wait, were those the same dates? It came out first in NA? What? It came out first in NA, a Resident Evil game?
November 21st.
By 9 days? Wait, that's
2002
crazy.
in Japan, February 28th, 2003 in Australia, and March 7th, 2003 in the EU.
That's insane. US got Resident Evil 0 first. Whoa. How long it would be from MP4 info? Yeah, from Metroid Prime 4. Thank God I'm getting a Switch 2. Now I don't have to worry about it. Though I do have to play Metroid Dread still. So at least now I'll have a better console to play Metroid Dread on. That's what kind of excites me about now finally getting a Switch 2. Shout out to Banshee again for getting it, because now I can play these games that I waited to play on the Switch on a better console that works with them, and I don't have to worry about all the crap. Like, I dropped Scarlet and Violet. Now I might go back and play Scarlet and Violet because I saw the performance differences. Anyway, sorry.
Most of the footage in this video will be from the original GameCube version of this game.
Wait, why? Why not just use the Steam HD port?
While this was the first edition of Resident Evil 0, Capcom also released a Wii version in 2008 and an HD edition in 2016. While the HD remaster is good, I preferred something about the feel of the GameCube version.
The 4x3 maybe? Because I've heard that a lot with horror games from back in the day. The 4x3 format made for TVs, made for tighter camera angles, less being shown, and almost a veil, because like the tight camera angles that you get from Resident Evil, where it's tank controls and things feel clunky and claustrophobic specifically, that's part of the fear, and I would imagine that's what it comes in there.
For the record, though, I think both games are pretty similar, and you would probably be justified in choosing either of these to experience this game.
I get that.
Resident Evil 0 actually takes place right before
no more 2 FPS,
Resident
there you go.
Evil 1. The game opens with a text crawl that sort of recaps the different places that each game has been set in.
I tried
Raccoon
to
City,
narrate
Rockford
this.
Island, Sheena Island.
And then
while there's no official word,
there was a
we know,
narration.
and the game itself knows, that Umbrella has been involved in all of these incidents.
Yes.
The crawl asks the question...
Wait, what was Sheena Island again? Because Rockford Island is where Code Veronica is. But what was Sheena Island? I always forget. I even played the game, and I think I asked the same question. Does anyone remember what Sheena Island is? Because Rockford Island is... what's it called? Code Veronica. Sheena Island is not. Gun Survivor? Is it really Gun Survivor? What's up, Golden Toast? Man, I love a good text scroll. I mean, listen, that's why Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie from 1995, is the greatest movie of all time, because it opens with a text scroll. You know what I'm saying?
Of Umbrella's origins.
The movie's 30
Where
years
did
old.
it
I think it's
come
Gun
from,
Survivor.
and
I'll take
how
your word
did
for
it
it.
develop the T virus?
I wouldn't be too surprised.
The game will sort of touch upon the answers to those questions.
I'll touch upon your questions.
It will attempt to set an origin before Resident Evil. And as we see a train full of passengers, we realize this game takes place the day before Resident Evil.
July 23rd.
As the train pushes through the darkness, we see a man standing on a cliff. And
this is why we don't have good transportation in the U.S., because there was an attack in the Arclay Mountains outside Raccoon City, and they were like, you know what? We can't have trains. Too dangerous. What if zombie leeches attack? Remove all of the train infrastructure from the U.S.
Suddenly,
the
vehicle is assaulted by leeches.
I found the reason.
Seemingly controlled by this paranormal figure on the rock.
Survivor. Okay.
2 hours later, we hear a voiceover from Rebecca Chambers. In the first Resident Evil game, we control the members of Alpha Team as they infiltrate the Arclay Mansion. They are there to rescue Bravo Team, who already arrived on scene to investigate
Bravo
a series of mysterious...
It's so funny, too. Yeah, so obviously we know Resident Evil 1, Jill, Chris, Wesker, and Barry enter the mansion, and I think the there's only 2 stars member, technically 3. There's only 3 stars members that are still alive at this point from Bravo team. Rebecca, who is in the downstairs safe room by that weird T hallway. Richard, who is bit by Yawn and is dying up here. And then Enrico, who is fucking around in the tunnels under the mansion. Yeah.
Murders in the area. Now,
is Resident Evil even about virus zombies or like paranormal zombies? Virus zombies. So specifically Resident Evil 1 and 0 and then 2 and 3 and Code Veronica are all about a virus called the T virus. T for tyrant. It was developed from a virus that was found in Africa back in the 60s called the progenitor virus. Basically, all it does is it reanimates dead cells and then rapidly renews them. So that's it's just a zombie virus. That's like the best way to think about it. But they were also able to develop other viruses from it, like the T Veronica virus, which is what Code Veronica is about. The G virus, which is in what's it called? Resident Evil 2. The T Nemesis virus, which is in Resident Evil 3. And then the T virus kind of disappears after that. Yeah. 4 flirted with the idea of paranormal, like ghost stuff. Even 7 did. 7 teased us with like ghost stuff, with like the trailers and the demo that we had for Resident Evil 7. I remember playing the crap out of the Resident Evil 7 demo. I had so much fun with it. But even that's back to a biological virus. They explained it with science eventually. So all of them are viruses always. Resident Evil 4 is Las Plagas, which is an ancient parasite found in a Spanish mining town. And then 5 is it's like Las Plagas combined with some other stuff called Ouroboros. And then Resident Evil 6 is like Ouroboros is then refined into a virus called the C virus. C like Charlie. And Resident Evil 7 is another virus that is not really a virus, but kind of a virus, but it's related to a giant fungus called the megamycete, and then that infects people. And then Resident Evil 8 is more of that same megamycete and fungal infections. So, yeah, moldy shrooms. Yeah, that's the best way to think about it. Sorry, I know a lot about this franchise. I love Resident Evil. It's one of my favorite gaming franchises. That's why I wanted to do this. If you guys have any questions about the game, please do ask, because it's going to be like Power Rangers. Like when I react to Power Rangers videos, that's how I want these to be, where I can sit down, yap about these, and vibe with them. So, yeah.
Now we're seeing
he's a nerd. You know what, Bun? Anyway.
Bravo team in the helicopter heading to what will be most of their deaths.
Yeah.
The helicopter is
most
suddenly
except
hit
for Rebecca.
And it crashes toward the earth. The soldiers get out and find an overturned truck spilling with dead bodies. They quickly find out that the car was transporting a prisoner named Billy Cohen, a Marine who was guilty of killing 23 people.
Do you guys think Billy's dead? Because Billy leaves Resident Evil 0 with some of the dogs still in the Arclay Mountains with not a lot of handgun ammo. They never brought him back ever. I don't even think he's ever mentioned again, like in files or anything. No, he becomes the Blue Ranger. No, he's 5 years too late for that. This is in 1998. Come on. Don't hit me with the knowledge check. I'll hit you with that 1-2 buckle my shoe.
He was sentenced to death and was being taken to his execution. The Bravo team members pretty quickly arrive at the conclusion that Billy was the one that killed them and resulted in this murder scene that we see
God, I hope
here.
so.
Bravo team is ready to apprehend the prisoner immediately and begin searching for Cohen.
I wonder if he would have joined like the BSAA. Because like, probably not, because that is a government organization. He may have been able to join something like TerraSave, or I don't know. I don't even know if he cared. Like, I'm just grasping at straws at that point. He probably became feral. It's cruiser. Big shot call. He's hanging out in Raccoon City after it's shunked to living off the grid. Ooh. Billy Cohen shows up in Resident Evil 9. Or you find the body of Billy Cohen. That'd be crazy. That'd be insane. Ripper's calling it now. Billy Cohen confirmed for Resident Evil 9.
Their jobs, and that scum murdered them and escaped.
All right, everyone. Let's separate and survey the area.
All right, everyone. Let's separate and search the area.
Our friend is brutal and ruthless. Keep your guard up.
Keep your guard up. We're gonna Enrico.
Rebecca
Jesus.
stumbles upon a train in the woods, standing still on the tracks. And as she enters, we get a message at the bottom of the screen, very similar to the one that we get at the beginning of Resident Evil 1. Rebecca finds a radio nearby and is eventually overwhelmed.
Wesker get
by
revealed as a
undead.
villain. Yes. So Wesker is revealed as a villain in Code Veronica. Like that he's still alive, because we're assumedly after Resident Evil 1 he's dead. But he comes back in Code Veronica with superpowers basically. And then it's just a constant background villain until Resident Evil 5 where he's dead. And I hope he stays dead. That is one thing that I really want them to keep, because Wesker's just done. You know, like the whole big thing, it was him and Chris. Him and Chris were like rivals, and they really sold that in Resident Evil 5. But yeah, just you know what I mean? R9 introduces Wesker too. God, I hope not. Music applause. Ah, it's rain. Rivals, got it. Well, I can't say like on stream. What do you want me to say? Oh, I could say rivals to lovers. There we go. Rivals to lovers to rivals. Right. Mods, what the stream?
We're given control of Rebecca for the first time and tasked with taking these
You better
foes
run.
out. Rebecca moves through the train, investigating its rooms, and eventually finds a strange diary from one of the passengers. This passenger was working for someone who wanted them to investigate an Arclay Mountains laboratory. The production of a specific BOW even had to be stopped because of this investigation. The note also details the experiments they were doing by combining the T virus with different species.
I think the BOW that they were making in Zero that they're referring to was the proto-tyrant, which is not the tyrant you fight in Resident Evil 1, but they were basically trying to make a tyrant, and then they had to stop making that tyrant, so it was never finished. Which is why it's like not as menacing as Resident Evil 1's tyrant, you know?
Another note in the next room over details more of that same investigation. These soldiers were attempting to investigate a training facility that was shut down to see if it would be fit to reopen. Down the hall, Rebecca finds a dead train passenger, and Billy appears behind her, pointing a gun at her head. Billy decides to leave after he sees that Rebecca is with the STARS unit, because they're on the search for him. Rebecca tries to stop and arrest him, but she doesn't try that hard because he just walks away.
I kind of wish they explained this a little bit better. Maybe in like a throwaway cutscene or a throwaway line. How does he know who STARS are? STARS wasn't formed until like a year or two ago. And Billy was overseas on a mission, which we know. He's been in Raccoon City getting transported for like a day. Like, is it from a radio? It's just a video game, you know?
Outside.
Oh, I see. You're with STARS.
You're with STARS.
Well, no offense, honey, but your kind doesn't seem to want me around. So, I'm afraid our little chat time is over.
He's up on newspapers. I'll take your word for it.
Wait, you're under arrest.
You're under arrest.
Thanks, Dollface. I've already worn handcuffs.
I love that line. He shows the handcuffs.
She sees
just keeps them for the rest of
nearby,
the game.
Pilot of Bravo Team's chopper. He's clearly been bit and infected.
Oh no.
He tells Rebecca that the whole forest is full of zombies. He then
The whole forest is full of terrible monsters. Ouch.
keels over dead, and some Cerberus dogs jump through the window to attack. Rebecca heads back through the train with the
You know what gets me sometimes? All this happened because a single mother can't accept the fact that her daughter is dead and couldn't let go, so she turned to a mutated moldy magic mushroom to cope. and the world was never the same after that. True. Awkwardly, through Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, Mother Miranda, we found the Megamycete and began experiments with that. But she was with Spencer and their initial investigations into the progenitor virus. And Spencer wanted to look into the progenitor, where Mother Miranda wanted to look into the Megamycete. So they split off, and it's why there's Umbrella like logos and paraphernalia in Resident Evil 8, because they were not, I don't think they were lovers, but I think it was like they were very close. How important is Umbrella in Resident Evil? I mean, it's the main villain for like 5 games. So I would say it's Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 3, and Code Veronica. They're the villains. So, yeah.
Mining car key in hand and gets
they were totally lovers. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like it's implied.
Is the other member of Bravo team that was found still alive in Resident Evil 1.
I swear to God, it's the same voice actor.
When Chris or Jill stumbled upon him in the underground
Stop right there,
tunnels.
Chris.
He tells Rebecca
Double
that Billy
crosser!
killed 23 people, and she needs to keep an eye out for him because he's clearly very dangerous. In the next room, she comes face to face with him again.
But high-level
Billy
one-liners,
asks
true.
Rebecca to team up.
Real.
They need each other's help, but she declines this invitation. He sends Rebecca upstairs on her own, and a man sits at a nearby dining table.
But fine.
This clearly is a man no longer, as he transforms into a pile of leeches that eventually form a new type of monster.
I also didn't realize this the first time we played. The man that's sitting there in the cutscene, the man that Rebecca sees in this cutscene here. I'm gonna zoom it back a little. All right, I could have just gone 5 seconds back. Come on. There we go. This is apparently Marcus. This is what he looked like when he died. I didn't know that. Anyway.
We load this thing full of bullets,
He's just
but
a Gucci
Rebecca
man
is
now.
about to be overcome by leeches before Billy arrives and saves the medic. The leeches crawl away, and we see the strange man outside in the lightning. Before these two can even wonder who that is, the train makes some sort of noise.
I wish Zero got a reboot. Zero's in such a weird position because, like, I think we probably would have to wait another 10 years before we get anything pertaining to Resident Evil 1 or 0 again. Because, like, 0 and 1 came out in 2002. And the HD remasters came out for them in, like, 2015, 2016. So the remasters are still great. Like, they hold up great. I already said I give Resident Evil 0 like a C+, B-. That one's not like god tier. But Resident Evil 1 remake is one of the greatest horror survival games ever made, if not the greatest. And still amazing, still looks great. Like, there's not a reason to remake it. 0 definitely could do with a touch-up, I think, like a reimagining or a modernization or something like that. But the problem is if we get 0... everyone's going to be like, well, where's 1? You know? 0 is also basically not canon at this point since it's so unused. Like, nothing from its reference. It honestly makes Rebecca in RE1 lesser because she never brings up any of this. I think technically it's still canon. I think there's like a few throwaway lines that are said like during some of like Rebecca's other appearances in like the CG movies, like in Vengeance and Death Island. You know, she's in 2 CG movies. I'm sorry, not Vengeance, Vendetta. She's in Resident Evil Vendetta and then in Death Island as well. So, what's
Rebecca
up, Java?
Is convinced that she needs the extra manpower and finally agrees to team up with Billy. We're now in control of 2 characters, Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen. This is where the new elements that Resident Evil 0 introduces are fully formed and put into play.
Yeah, like an apple.
Because of that, it's probably a good time to talk about gameplay. Resident Evil returns to the survival horror roots of its predecessors. That means that it has fixed camera angles. The camera changes as you walk down hallways or enter different corners of a room. This is in contrast to how the last big game in the series, Code Veronica, handled things. Code Veronica introduced a dynamic camera that
which is really cool.
would sometimes be fixed, but would oftentimes follow the player around an environment by swooping around or changing its position.
Damn.
Code Veronica
Claire.
also introduced full 3D environments to the series to allow for that aforementioned camera change.
Yeah, so they had to ditch a lot of pre-rendered backgrounds, and Code Veronica obviously also came out before RE1 remake and Zero. Man, Code Veronica is honestly the game that, like, this is what makes me sad, because it's like, because we already have RE2, 3, and 4 remake, we're probably not going to get a Code Veronica remake, because they would have had to have done it after Resident Evil 2 or after Resident Evil 3. So, and I think Code Veronica, it's so funny because, and I am a certified Resident Evil 5 defender, which is, I know it's a really weird thing because I love Resident Evil as a franchise. I genuinely think 5 is an amazing game, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Resident Evil 5 is the best Resident Evil game of all time. It is significantly more action-paced. There's not as much high tension. But when you play that game co-op, that game is so much freaking fun and genuinely a good time. And sure, the story turns into like B action movie and things like that. But that's where I'm like, I think that could really use a remake. You know, give it better controls, make the co-op better, make the AI smarter, because everyone hates the AI and it always made for a bad experience when you played with AI Sheva. Yeah, so, but it sucks because if it's between Resident Evil 5 and Code Veronica, I'm not going to lie, I'd rather have a Resident Evil 5 remake. I'm not going to lie. I'd rather have 5. The first conversation between Rebecca and Billy, is it flirty or not? I don't think so. Not really. It's just Billy being like, I don't know, he just says some shit. If anything, it's misogynistic, but it's not like, I don't know, maybe. I don't think it's flirty though, because Billy's like in his mid-20s, Rebecca's 18, so it's like, it's a little weird, but like he doesn't have any way of knowing it. Also, they don't really do that. It's just two people in a weird situation talking. I don't think there's any context that makes it deeper than that. Add more punchable rocks? I agree.
Resident Evil Zero, on the other hand, returns to the pre-rendered backgrounds of
just
old.
like Resident Evil 1 remake did.
Resident Evil Zero was built off of a lot of the framework that the Resident Evil 1 remake was.
Yes, it was.
You can see this in its general design and color palette. The games look
was
so
our Resident Evil
similar,
BL? I mean, Wesker's right there.
which I guess makes them feel like they fit together.
Chris is right. There you go. There they are. There it is. There's your BL. I don't know what else you want. It's right there. Take notes.
As a pair. If you had played Resident Evil 1's remake, then you wouldn't feel like you're moving too much backwards or forwards by playing Resident Evil 0.
Yeah, it's just a
at
lateral
least
move.
when it comes to aesthetics.
Yeah.
But because this is a survival horror game, we use classic survival horror controls to take part in combat
Tank
with enemies.
controls!
We hold down the aim button and fire at enemies with our chosen weapon. Ammo is of course restricted, and so are healing items. This is where the horror and the intensity in the game is generated from, the restriction of resources. Getting into encounters with low ammunition is still just as terrifying as it has ever been.
I will also say, I don't know if I just sucked, but Resident Evil 0, the ammo felt very tight. I definitely struggled and I played on normal. I definitely struggled at times with ammo, where I was like, oh, I don't really want to fight this because I don't really have the ammo for it. And at some point it did get way easier and it got better and everything like that. But there were times I was like, man, this enemy took 42 shotgun shots. I feel like it was only designed this way, not because it was a tough enemy, but because they were worried that I'd have too much ammo at this point. Looking at you, Scorpion boss. Or not Scorpion, Centipede. So.
Getting into encounters with low healing items is just as intense as before. We can combine different herbs to create healing items.
Yeah.
And our general goal in the game
The survival
is to
aspect,
unlock
it really
areas
did.
of our environment. This is done by solving various puzzles and getting keys that will allow us to progress. These are all of the things that have stayed the same.
Yep.
But a lot about Resident Evil 0 has changed. The first big introduction to this entry is being able to play 2 characters at once. In Resident Evil 1 and 2, we could choose from 2 different characters. Playing through with these characters
that was so satisfying. I love getting those headshots with Chris.
would slightly change how the game plays and how its design unfolds. But to play through with both characters would require 2 separate playthroughs. In Resident Evil 0, we control both Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen. Each characters have things that they can do and things that they can't do.
This did piss me off at times because the split up between the characters feels like not great. I don't love the split up with it because it gets kind of boring after a while for no reason whatsoever. What's your favorite color? Pink. Billy is the strong one, so if there's like metal boxes or things that he has to push or pull or maneuver physically, he has to do it. He also has a lighter, which I think has like 1 or 2 uses. It is so genuinely like feels so useless. Rebecca, on the other hand, is the herb expert. So she's the only one that can mix herbs. And she works with chemicals, which are used in a couple puzzles throughout the game. And it just felt really weird because there are several times where like you have to send Rebecca into dangerous situations, like hoisting her up over something or doing like a pulley or something, or because Billy's too heavy to fit somewhere, she has to go instead, or Billy has to push a heavy box because Rebecca can't. And it's like, I don't know, it's just, I get tired of it by the end of it. Yeah, it would have been better as co-op, I agree. But like GameCube is like, you know.
Rebecca starts out with the mixing set extra item that allows her to combine herbs. This was a feature that any character could do in previous games, but now it's relegated to only Rebecca. Billy starts out with the lighter item, which is basically only used for 1 or 2 puzzles in the game that are required to progress.
Felt really bad.
Rebecca has a bit lower defense than Billy, meaning that if she takes hits, she takes much more damage than he does. Rebecca inflicts less damage on enemies than Billy, and Billy can push large objects, which is required for some of the puzzles in the game.
I also definitely got pissed off about the like health pools. Totally fine, understand that. You know, Chris had a larger health pool than Jill, and usually the trade-off was Jill has more inventory space, Chris has more health, and that was usually it. And Jill also had the lockpick, and Chris got the lighter, which was used in a couple more things. So like it made sense for Resident Evil 0 at least, or Resident Evil Remake. But Billy also dealing more damage with a gun that Rebecca can use too, and guns are not exclusive to a person. It really genuinely feels like there's no reason to not play as Billy for the majority of the game. I don't really get the damage thing. Just did not make sense to me. They could have made puzzles more complex by needing each character in certain places, hanging things in each other, and working together. I think there are 1 or 2 spots where you have to do that, but it's like, have this character stand in this spot to like depress something, and then they have to go walk to it while it's open. And I like those, but yeah, there's the specifics between them got a little annoying towards the end of the game.
But the real technological jump that this game introduces is the ability to swap between these characters at will. At any time during the game, as long as characters aren't indisposed by the main story, with the press of a button, we can switch to the opposite character.
This freaking grapple gun, I hate it.
Separate inventories. They have their own health statuses, and they even have their own distinct place in solving specific puzzles.
They do.
Now, the implementation of this system is actually pretty well done in certain places. Honestly, the fact that you can have a character in a room on a different floor of the environment and just swap to them seamlessly is pretty crazy for the time.
I will also agree with that. Even playing it, you know, back in, you know, last week, it felt very cool to be able to like put basically Billy and Rebecca in 2 completely different scenarios, sometimes areas, and it'd be fine and just be able to swap back and forth between them. Is very cool.
And it's often pretty cool how this is implemented with puzzles.
Yes.
Certain puzzles will require us to get a handle to fix a lift and send one character upstairs, effectively separating the two for a period of time. Some puzzles will have the character working together with the other, like a box puzzle later in the game, where
This is the one I was talking about. This is the one I was frustrated by, because Rebecca can't push this box because it's too heavy. And to me, the reason they did that is because they don't want you progressing further as just Rebecca, because it gets more and more dangerous. And that's where I'm kind of like, I wish they let me figure that out on my own. But yeah.
in the game, where Rebecca has to control a water device up top while Billy pushes boxes around on the bottom.
Ugh.
Swapping back and forth between these two characters feels good, and it's generally
Or progress
well
too fast.
done.
Yeah, exactly.
We can control whether the character we aren't playing, referred to by the game as the partner character, will follow us or stay behind.
Partner.
This is used to control characters with more precision, especially in puzzles when we need that kind of control.
And if you have to send Rebecca up here because she weighs less. And that's always like, I'm like, what? I mean, I guess, but it's like, it's a mechanical lift. Like, it can't be that, like, Billy can't weigh that much more than Rebecca. What does he weigh more, like another 50, 60 pounds? He's not that big.
If we decide to leave a character behind, that character can still be attacked while we're gone. We can also control whether the partner character attacks or stays passive. They can defend themselves while we're gone or in combat, but if they don't have much health or ammo, they might just die and we still get a game over.
Ooh, I don't think I ever had that where I left another character behind and they got attacked and died. I'm sure there were situations where it could have happened, but maybe I just left them equipped and they had stuff, you know?
In the original concept for the game, the team toyed with actually allowing one character to die, the game still being able to be completed as long as Rebecca or Billy made it to the end.
What?
They eventually had to scrap this idea, obviously, because Rebecca was canonically alive in the next game.
Yeah, I was going to
say. The issue with this system isn't really an issue with the system itself, but is a problem that comes from an offshoot of another system. That system is item boxes.
Yes.
Resident Evil 0 removes item boxes entirely. In previous games, characters had limited inventory space, and we had to use item boxes to store items that we didn't need right now. Extra ammunition, extra healing
items. Dude, the locusts were so
key items that
gross.
we are collecting for a puzzle we haven't reached yet. These item boxes were transferable, meaning that we could put items in an item box on one side of the environment.
Bro, how come they weren't attacking her? Bro, I was in this room, I was always leaving it with like getting hit twice, and they took 3 shotgun shots apiece. What the frick? I don't play it on easy.
And then grab them from another item box on the other side.
Hallucinating in the mansion, that'd be really funny.
And this was clearly a genius system. We had a limited personal storage, but we had an unlimited storage in specific rooms across the map.
And to be like that.
This design was also genius because it allows the developer to choose where the player gets access to these item boxes.
Which is, it was really smart in Resident Evil 1, and it was really smart in Resident Evil Remake because there were certain rooms that were dangerous to go past or took a lot of resources to clear out, or they would repopulate them with stronger enemies like hunters later. But Resident Evil 0, man, I just wish they kept item boxes. I think it would have been so much better.
Maybe they've sent them on a long run, and an item box could offer a reprieve from the onslaught of enemies they've had to move through.
That too.
Choosing to give that item box to the player a few rooms down the line is an intentional choice that affects how difficult, challenging, or intense a particular stretch of the game is. Placement of item boxes around most future games use them. Environment also determines where safety lies. And if you've played Resident Evil games before, you can probably remember right now where the item boxes are.
Yes, absolutely, because it's iconic. Like, having those safe rooms are so built into your memory, you know? Like, Resident Evil 2 has, air quotes, the safe room in the main hall, in Remake at least, until Marvin, you know, transforms and tries to attack you, or until Mr. X shows up. But it's also got them everywhere, you know, and it becomes more and more of a knowing how to ferry items properly. And just the fact that it's just not like that in Zero is just so weird. The idea of being able to drop items, I like the concept. But if they let you drop items and then there were also item boxes that you could, you know, transport everything between, I think it'd be so much better. Because even with the ability to drop items, there's an item limit on the floor, which we ran into in Zero in my playthrough because I picked up 2 blue herbs that I ultimately wasn't able to do anything with because we never got poisoned. So I never did anything with them. So I just never combined them with anything else. And I needed the greens for other things, and I didn't want to risk not being able to multi-do greens. And so I just had all these freaking items that were just on the floor, and I couldn't do anything with them, you know? And then ferrying items, like I said, is just a pain in the ass.
The item boxes are touchstones of safety, and those touchstones stick in your mind.
Yeah.
Resident Evil Zero does away with this system entirely.
What's up,
we
Candace?
no
Welcome
longer
in.
have item boxes in the game. If we want to store items outside of our person, then we need to leave them in areas. We can do this by entering our inventory and selecting the Leave option when highlighting an item. This will make the item disappear from our inventory and appear on the ground in the room that we're currently in.
Which is, again, it's a cool idea, and I like the idea, but it's like, should have had item boxes too. I remember a lot of the safe rooms in 2 because of that. Yeah, it just becomes like iconic at that point. And then for me, like the room that I remember the most from Resident Evil 0 is the main hall because it's just where I dumped all my items. Also, hi,
this
Savage Mocha.
effectively
Hi.
means that every single room in the game is an item box. We can leave items anywhere and pick them up at any time, provided we have enough inventory space for them. Now, I can totally see why the developers of Resident Evil Zero thought this would be a good idea. If you're trying to revolutionize Resident Evil, what do? You remove the item boxes. You take something central to the series away from the player. Resident Evil...
Yeah, but like there are other things they could have taken away. Like they already added co-op, like an AI-controlled partner. I think that would have been enough. You know? Remember what and where you dropped it. Luckily, the map would tell you. You could always look at the map. Feeling people can't sleep. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. You are more than welcome to come hang out with us if you like, because we are just vibing, thriving, and surviving, watching some Resident Evil 0 retrospective. So pull up a chair, kick up your feet, enjoy yourself.
Evil has always catered to a survival horror fan base, arguably popularizing the genre in the first place.
What do you mean, arguably? It definitely did. 100%, like Resident Evil 100% is the godfather of survival horror. Yeah.
Taking away the item boxes is just another way to increase intensity. Removing the touchstone of safety, the places that you distinctly remember, only leaves you with the typewriters laid out for saving your progress. These become the only representation of safety in the game. But the lack of safety isn't what makes these item boxes bad. Increasing the intensity doesn't make them ineffective either.
Nah.
It's the way that this balance is integrated into the game and the effects that come from getting rid of the item box that truly tears this entry down.
Yeah, and especially like you can even see it like after the train scene, all the items that you didn't pick up on the train or that you left somewhere just get catapulted out of the train onto the floor. And it's one of those like, oh, you immediately see how many items there are. And if you're a better player than me, you probably didn't have to grab as many items, or there's probably more items available to you. So like you leave the train and it's like, oh, there's a lot of items here that I can't carry, and I have to traverse between 4 or 5 rooms before I can get to the main hall. It sucks. Not gonna lie, Billy no, I agree.
Because we have no item box, and because...
What about Alone in the Dark is not Godfather? So it's like, that's like great Godfather kind of thing. Because it's like Alone in the Dark absolutely inspired Resident Evil, but Resident Evil is the thing that did it, that popularized it and revolutionized it. I think we've talked about this before. Maybe Alone in the Dark Godfather, and maybe just Resident Evil Father.
items are not transported to the next area that we travel to. If we have too many items,
Flaming
we have
zombies.
to leave them on the ground.
Also, Rebecca refusing to shoot unless you shoot first always pissed me off. Billy is significantly more aggressive and will just shoot when he can.
If we encounter a key item and we don't have room for it, that means we have to leave something in this room, or we have to run back to a place that we'd like to keep the item we're about to drop it, and then run back to grab the key item. This is an incredibly tedious process.
Yep.
And
this part especially, because as soon as you get like the lift that leads to the other part of the not the training facility, it goes to the lab. That truck is annoying because as soon as you turn around to go back, it's filled with monkeys, and it's like, why? You want me to backtrack. You want me to go through these areas. Why did you make them significantly harder with the worst enemies?
Encounter many problems if we have to leave particularly useful items behind.
Yeah.
Let's say that we need to pick up a key item and we decide to leave a first aid spray behind. Later in the game, when we're really in need of a healing item, we'll need to travel back to that room to grab the first aid spray.
Yep.
But maybe it's not in a great location. Maybe it's out of our way. Or maybe we don't even remember where we left it.
What are these items on the ground? This has to be uneasy. I don't remember these items being here. That's grenade rounds, acid rounds, something at her feet, and then another weapon behind her.
Certain items will actually appear on the map when we drop them, but it seems like this only happens if we had them in our inventory first. If we passed an item and decided to leave it for later, we just have to
I'm wondering if I
remember
just
that it's
missed
there.
something, you know?
This is why I tend to call the game's design messy, because the result is an unorganized game layout where items end up scattered around a mansion and we're unable to properly take stock of what we have.
Yeah.
In my video on Resident Evil 1, I talked about the resource management in that game. I talked specifically about how Resident Evil could even be referred to as a management simulator because you are effectively
I do remember him saying
gathering
that.
resources
Also,
and
last
then
Apple Bite.
trading those resources for other resources. Trading ammunition by killing an enemy for safety. Trading health for security. Sometimes trading health or ammunition for more health or ammunition. The game is all about making good trades.
Yeah.
This whole dynamic relies on you actually being able to take stock of what you have. Fear and tension in the Resident Evil series are generated from the restriction in resources.
But in Resident Evil 0, the fear turns instead into frustration because it's, man, I just had to spend, 7 shotgun shots and 4 Molotov cocktails to kill this one leech person. And now I'm like, okay, well, I don't have enough inventory space to carry these heals that are in front of me. And I'm low on ammo. And I have to carry these key items that I have to, get going. And this shotgun that I'm carrying is 2 spots. And the grenade launcher that Rebecca is carrying has 2 slots. And it's like, man, it's just a pain in the ass. I 100% agree with everything he's saying.
We know we lack resources, therefore we're terrified. If we don't know what we do and
it turns
don't
from
have
being
because it's
terrified
spread
into
all
frustration
throughout the areas of the game, left wantonly by us to pick up more important items at the time, then we truly don't know what we have. This creates an adverse response within the player. They no longer know if this is their last box of ammunition or not. They no longer are aware of whether this is their last healing item.
Bad.
They could have left something out there and just forgotten about it. Who knows?
And we have a map though. But it's like, it's just, it becomes less about being scared about it. And it's more of, well, shit, there's nothing on my map about it. Well, I'm out.
This removes the impact from the actual last box of ammunition because you aren't sure whether you're supposed to place that weight on it or not. This, of course, is only one way of dealing with this system. The other way we could deal with things is to collect all of the items we come across and transfer them to a specific room.
Which is what I did. I put them in the main hall. Anytime I had items that I didn't need, I just left them in the main hall until I got hit with the fact that there is an inventory limit in the main hall. And I was like, I was like, why? Why is there an inventory limit in the main hall of items you can drop on the floor? It doesn't make any sense.
probably beside a typewriter.
Yeah.
We could collect all these items
That's
and
what I
leave
did.
them there so that we can always take stock of what we have. This creates a bad time for the player, though, for two reasons.
You're going to have a bad time.
For one, it's a tedious process that the player doesn't really want to engage with in the first place, and requires far more backtracking than any of the other games had. The second reason is that this is effectively creating our own item box because the game won't allow us to have one, except that the item box doesn't travel with us to new areas of the game.
Which is the frustrating part, because you're constantly having to like ferry things back and forth, and it just becomes a pain in the ass. You know, it just becomes a pain in the ass. Yeah, story-wise, we're almost there. Story is the next conversation. So we can see it, that we only have a little bit, because they always do like a breakdown of like behind the scenes, introduction, and then gameplay, and then it's like, all right, now it's time for the actual story, and then final thoughts. So.
Not all Resident Evil games need an item box, but Resident Evil 0 was balanced and designed to have one, or it at least feels like it needs one.
I was going to say 8 doesn't, but that's just basically because you have the attaché case. And then the same thing for Resident Evil 4. Doesn't have an item box, but you have the attaché case and the merchant. And then 5 also doesn't have an item box, but it does have in between level or in between chapter item boxes, basically. And I don't remember what Resident Evil 6 has, but it's definitely not that. I think each character just gets new weapons, and then that's your inventory. You never don't have an inventory.
You would think that having 2 characters and 12 total inventory slots would offset this, but it really doesn't.
No.
There are so many items in the game that we need to carry, especially because both characters start off with a pistol and generally at least need 2 slots taken up to carry that weapon and some ammo.
I will also point this out just because this just happened. So you see how Rebecca got grabbed here? So she straight up just gets grabbed. There's the grab animation, you know? And Billy shoots her free, which is great. I found that these situations where someone gets grabbed, and if the partner saves them, they still take the damage. And I'm like, why? I stopped them from getting bit. Like, there was no attack. They just got, like, pulled. Yeah, I found it happen multiple times where, like, Billy would get grabbed. Rebecca would save him before he gets bit. Yeah, I didn't get that. I was very confused.
Pistol, and generally at least need 2 slots taken up to carry that weapon and some ammo.
Yep.
We'll also get more weapons later in the game.
Yeah, so it turns into, I need the powerful weapon, which is 2 inventory slots, ammo for it, which is a 3rd inventory slot. I'd like to have a handgun so I don't have to just waste all my powerful ammo, and then ammo for the handgun, and then healing. And that's all 6 inventory slots right there. I thought, whoa, uh-oh, that's not good.
Healing items and specific key items that need to be carried. The concept of removing the item box is interesting but flawed.
Very flawed.
But that doesn't mean that it couldn't work. You could do it effectively, but Resident Evil 0 just does not accurately balance itself to deal with this change in mechanics.
Item box would make it better.
And it creates a tedious relationship with the game. To be in a better position, you have to act as a pack mule and walk back and forth around the environment.
Man, I was never able to hit these goddamn
sort of present
crows.
in previous games. If you didn't have enough space for an item, then you could just run back for it later, or come back and grab it after you've gotten some more space.
Because they get despawned anyway.
It genuinely feels like the opposite of introducing quality of life changes in a video game.
Yeah.
It makes the item box seem like it was introduced later as a way to make...
Bro, this has to be easy mode. There were definitely not herbs right here. Bro, I'm actually going to scream. I can tell the difference in difficulty just where items are. There was not healing here. I remember, dude, because I ran by here with Billy being in danger and I had no healing anywhere and I was so scared.
A way to make things easier for the player, and that this was the prototype.
My favorite son would never play easy. No, easy's fine. I mean, I know you're joking, but genuinely, if you want to play easy just so you can enjoy the story and enjoy the game, do it. I like playing normal because I get that difficulty as well. But yeah, like, enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. It feels like they only took the one remake, ripped stuff out, and then sent it as is. There are bits and pieces of that. The stairs also really bothered me because there's this really goofy thing that you can do in Resident Evil 1 remake. It's called stair skating. And I did it during our playthrough of Resident Evil 1. And I would like, you would aim rapidly. You would keep pressing the aim button to make it easier to go up and down the stairs. And you would fly. It was so fast. For some reason, that doesn't work in Resident Evil 0. And the going up the stair animation, very slow.
Was removed,
like, look at that.
And it feels messy without it. There are some other problems that come from the removal of the item
My
box
speedrunner
system,
ass could never.
But we'll get to those later in the video because
totally
they
serious.
are situational.
Seriously gonna
For
suplex
now,
you. How
we
about
take
that?
Billy and Rebecca up onto the top of the train. They reconnect some wires to get the automatic doors running.
Super fun too.
And
I agree.
one of the characters, either Billy or Rebecca, depending on who we had reconnect these wires, gets trapped in a room downstairs in the train. One piece of praise that I will give the two character swapping system is that it makes the game truly dynamic.
Sometimes. Because in this situation, yes, you could pick Rebecca or Billy to go. I picked Rebecca because I forgot that this scenario is also where you find your first boss fight, and you have to fight the boss with whoever you sent into that room, which should be Billy because he does more damage and has more health. Me not remembering this sent Rebecca, and it made it not fun.
Choosing different characters to do different things does actually yield cutscenes that switch the character based on their current makeup. It could have been easy to just railroad the player into one case, like having Billy be the one that gets stuck in here and just keeping that fixed, but the system stays pretty dynamic, which allows the player a lot of agency for how they'd like to approach the game.
Damn, that looked like a
You
rough
always
fall
really
too.
want to keep putting Billy into the combat situations though, because he does more damage and doesn't get hurt as much.
And knowing that feels like okay, I get it. You know, give Billy the big weapons, give Billy, you know, the everything, and then have Rebecca be kind of like the pack mule for healing items and things like that. But even then, that just feels so weird.
Since Billy is stuck in this room, we have to have him send a key downstairs using the dumbwaiter.
I do like this,
Rebecca
though.
can grab this key and make her way further through the train. She gets a briefcase, which, when we find 2 metal rings to open its lock, will yield us a blue key card that allows us to get to the front of the train.
Finally.
Before that happens, though, we can find a hunting rifle, essentially a double-barrel shotgun.
Yeah, I don't know why it wasn't just hunting shotgun. You know, why does it use shotgun shells if it's a hunting rifle? I feel like it was just,
And we have our first boss battle. Another criticism that I have for Resident Evil 0 is that its boss battles are mostly bad.
I agree. The Scorpion, once we found out the gimmick, which was open the head and blast it away constantly, and then just as soon as it recovers from its iframes, do it again, and it'll recoil backwards. Joke. Centipede, just a damage sponge. The giant bat, more awkward than anything because you had to find the right angle. And apparently you can just stun lock it, and I didn't know that. And then the proto-tyrants are like whatever, but they're just giant damage sponges too. And then Final Leech Man, just massive damage sponge. And then Final Leech Queen is just awkward because of the freaking, you know, ugh.
This boss battle in particular sees us fighting off a Scorpion in this small, cramped bar car of the train. The Scorpion can really only move forward, and our shots push it back. Because of the environment and the enemy that we're fighting, this fight is really just stand and shoot down until the
Final Leech
stinger is
Queen.
killed. We can grab an ice pick
Oh, thanks.
near here and send it back up to Billy so that he can get out of that locked room. The two can head to the back of the train and grab the hook shot, an item that will plague the rest of this playthrough and make up the bulk of the whining and complaining that I'll do later.
It's so funny because everybody has the same reaction to the hook shot. I really liked the hook shot as a concept, I was like, oh, cool. I might be able to explore some like hidden areas, find some like fat loot, like that kind of thing. And it's just the worst. It's so bad.
This hook shot will
The bat
allow
picking
us
up
to
Billy was
access
hilarious, though. I
specific
agree with that. That was
areas
funny.
We wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. We need to use it in the train to get back to the roof and drop down into a room that's had its roof destroyed.
Oh, baby.
This allows us to get the blue key card and make our way to the back of the train, where we see 2 Umbrella soldiers who are a part of Delta Team, not to be confused with Bravo or Alpha Team. These
Yeah, but like, where's Hunk?
guys definitely aren't stars. They're reporting directly to Albert Wesker and William Birkin, who are both monitoring the situation from afar. They're talking about the T-virus
Where's my hunk?
leak
That's
and
what I'm
how it
saying.
spread to both this train and the Arclay mansion. Wesker gives Birkin the orders to destroy the train, but the soldiers are killed by leeches before they can do anything. When we enter the front
and I
car
think
of
they
the
get back
train,
up, too.
Billy and Rebecca determine that they need to stop this thing at any cost. So we need to activate the brakes. The only way that we can do this is to activate them at the front of the train and the back at the same time. We need to leave one.
I will say I did like this. The added tension of, okay, like one person stays here, the other goes to the back of the train, and you know it's going to be a gauntlet of getting through zombies, you know?
Character at the front
Resident Evil 10,
and take
please,
the other
no.
character all the way through the train to
If I remember correctly, the reason why item boxes got removed in RE0 was because the devs assumed having them while having 2 characters was going to be bad for balance. Yeah, but it's like you control both characters. That's the thing, you know?
the back.
Hookshop should be
And we
illegal.
only
I
have
agree.
3 minutes and 30 seconds
concur.
to do so. It's actually not that
good point.
bad, though we do
Nicholas.
need to contend with just about every enemy that we encounter because the narrow hallways are too small to be able to avoid any enemies that we come across here.
And that did piss me off because Resident Evil 1 remake, you can definitely juke zombies by just outmaneuvering them, baiting them into lunging or attacking you. And 0 definitely couldn't, especially in the train. This is just such a narrow passage. You were boned.
This is another negative that this game has just in general. Avoiding enemies is almost impossible.
Oh, yeah, I
in
think I
just
sent
about
Billy.
every situation. There are very few circumstances where we even can avoid enemies, and even fewer where it's appropriate. This is something that I really don't like because it feels like we mostly only have one option to engage. This removes player agency
Kumari.
and basically takes away
Thanks
the
for the follow.
option
Welcome in.
to
Oh, and for the
run,
sub on YouTube.
which previously was used to generate more fear and tension from the player. The duo of fight or flight has been broken apart and only fight remains.
That is a very interesting point. I never really thought about that because flight is almost just never worth it because the amount of space you have to cover in such a short amount of time versus the amount of damage you're going to take is just like never worth it. There were so many times where like I had to like run past monkeys and I'm always kind of like, would it have been better if I just fought the monkeys instead? Because those fuckers took so much health, you know? What's up, Lazy? Welcome in. Fudge because of the Common Rider clip. Common Rider clip? There's a Common Rider clip? Oh. Someone clip me talking about Common Rider? What's up, Sleepy Vax? That's what I liked about the other REs, being able to have room to move. Yeah. Because it's like, even if you didn't want to fight, you could run. Yeah, gasp. It's one of the devs seeing the second character as a mobile item box. That's what it feels like now. You know? Seems like the fight game. RE1 seems like the flight game. Yeah, because there are a lot of times where it's like just not worth fighting.
On the way to the back of the train, Rebecca encounters the undead Edward.
Oh, that's probably why you're supposed to send Rebecca. I remember seeing him, but Billy saw him and then didn't even do anything.
The man we saw die at the beginning of the game. This is really treated as a deeply emotional moment, but it's really only emotional for Rebecca
I was going to say, I literally missed this because I sent Billy back.
because we have no clue who Edward is.
Oh.
Edward! No.
Oh.
It's implied emotion.
Bro, I'm actually so sad. Wait, that would have just made the train better. I mean, like, the train is already my, like, one of my favorite parts of the game. But, like, man. Petey Piper, thanks for the follow.
Emotion rather than real emotion, because we have no experience of him whatsoever. When we get to the back, we complete a pretty simple puzzle to activate the brakes. We have to press 10 buttons total, the sums of which have to add up to the number on screen.
Wow, that's crazy.
When this is done, our partner character, the one we left behind, has to do the same at the front of the train, but their display is busted, so we have to do the math in our head.
Math in our heads? That's crazy.
The rush back to the caboose really isn't that difficult. There's more than enough time here to be comfortable, though the ticking clock is always something that generates more intensity.
Just like Capcom to have a timer or a countdown that leads to destruction. I've always wanted to play the RE games, but I have a higher than normal resting heart rate, so horror games might actually be the death of me. I will say, Resident Evil is more of an anxiety than like a jump scare horror. There are definitely times where you might get jump scared, but it's definitely more of an anxiety horror rather than a like an immediate like jump horror. Because it puts you on edge, you're in a spooky scenario, you're trying to like maneuver items, you're trying to save inventory space, you're trying to solve puzzles, all while dealing with monsters. It is less about the actual like, at least in my opinion, it's less about the actual like boo and more about the existential dread that you're dealing with during it. Math Wild Dio. It's all right. I'll handle the math, Pookie. Or
when both sets of brakes are activated, the train ends up derailing and crashing as it reaches its destination, an umbrella training facility where the rest of the game will take place. Billy and Rebecca are unscathed in the fiery aftermath, and luckily all of our items that we dropped in the train managed to fly out and hit the ground in front of us.
It's really funny because the more I look back at Resident Evil 0, it really does kind of just feel like it took bits and pieces of all the other Resident Evil games and were like, what if I took this, didn't change it much, and then, you know, because like this feels just ripped out of Resident Evil 3. You know? Like this whole thing, I remember the scene in original Resident Evil 3 where Jill is trying to stop the train because it's her and Carlos are at like the front of the train. And she goes, it's no use. And she jumps out of the freaking like high speed train like a badass. And then the train crashes. So, yeah.
Somehow, this is the only time in the entire game that it actually gives us this grace, though, because from here on out, if we need an item, we have to take it with us.
It do be
Once
annoying
Billy and Rebecca
like that.
get inside, they realize they're in an Umbrella research facility. They see a portrait of the first manager of the facility, Dr. James Marcus.
Fuck that guy. All my homies hate Marcus, which is super boring and ugly. A hospital would have been more interesting. You mean as opposed to the mansion? I actually kind of like the training facility, the mansion. I'm actually kind of a fan of it. But hospital, it was in 3 as well. You play as Carlos.
Wesker and Birkin are still watching over them, viewing their progress through CCTV
They would have just stolen that too,
footage.
you know?
We hear Marcus talking over the loudspeaker, giving the Umbrella Corporation's company motto. Birkin and Wesker's monitors are taken over as we see the long-haired man from outside the train admitting that he was the one that scattered the T-virus around both the mansion and the train.
Which is always kind of like, all right, cool, I guess, but it's just because you're made of leeches, bro. Relax.
Mystery Man claims that his motivation is to get revenge on Umbrella as a whole. Dr. Marcus, who this man claims was murdered by Umbrella 10 years ago, appears behind him.
Just get over it.
It seems to be a strange, reformed creation from the leeches that we saw before.
Don't be such a little
man
bitch.
on the train who also formed out of leeches.
Yeah.
We then jump back to the training facility, which very much looks like a mansion rather than any sort of facility, but we'll go with it.
That's always what I say. It's the mansion. It's train, mansion, lab, water treatment.
This is our main area for most of the rest of the
that's all I'm
game.
saying.
We'll shift to
What a
another
bitch.
area at a later part of the game, but it's connected to this one, so it basically feels like one large building.
Yeah.
Besides that, we'll spend a large chunk of time here in this facility.
I will say, I think game-wise, I remember I think we spent more time in this section of the game than any other section of the game, right? I feel like that's pretty accurate, right? That we were kind of just running through it. Because, like, did I die during this section? I actually can't remember. I don't think I died during... I did. I died to Centipede. But yeah, I just remember this one being, like, the longest. Yeah, which sucks. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because it's got the downstairs part, too. That's, like the cave-ish area.
That being said, I honestly think that the train is probably the game's best area.
Hard agree.
And that it's entirely behind us now. The wreckage of the game's strongest parts is sitting in flames at the entrance to this facility.
Ironically, though, I keep coming back to this. I actually did like the water treatment was good too, because it reminded me of Resident Evil 3, of Dead Lab, of or Dead Factory, and I think that was the idea that they were going for.
The train really was a unique approach to the Resident Evil formula, a moving vehicle that we're perched on, and the ways that the team found to still make this vehicle feel like a labyrinth, integrating key items like key cards and briefcases, felt truly awesome.
I'll also say, just because I remember this, there's only one other time where I got really excited about a zombie outbreak on like a vehicle of some sorts. In the Resident Evil, oh shit, what are they called? Oh, I don't remember the name of it. It's one of the CG series. So it's Damnation, Regeneration, or is it Regeneration, Damnation, Vendetta, and then there was a couple episode series on Netflix with Leon and Claire as the main characters. And I cannot for the life of me remember what that name is. But one of the episodes, Leon is in a submarine with a zombie outbreak. And I was like, I remember reading the description and being super hyped because I was like, yo, submarine sounds like a terrible place to have a zombie outbreak because you can't shoot at all. No, not guy. It's not a game. It was one of the Netflix CG series because it was a series, not a movie. And I was like, this is so cool. I love the concept. I wonder how they're going to get out of it. And it's like, they immediately instead jump the gun and there's zombie rats, which makes it really, really awkward. And then they leave the submarine like that same episode. And I was like, oh, that kind of feels like a waste. Because I remember really liking the zombie outbreak on like Resident Evil Revelations. Yeah, stab only, I guess, maybe. I don't freaking know.
I particularly enjoyed the segments where we had to walk across the roof of the train.
Oh, yeah, those
as
are scary.
The forest was speeding across our vision, rushing past us with rain falling all around.
I love this. Seeing the rain and hearing it whoosh and buzz and whir and everything like that definitely added a lot of like, oh, wow, we are going hella fast. This is really dangerous. This is really scary,
It's a beautiful scene.
I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen it yet.
Aesthetics tend to match this high bar.
It's okay.
The narrow cab cars,
Infinite darkness. Thank you.
Pleasing from a design perspective, but they're functionally cumbersome. Despite that fact, the train is very well organized. It's small, but it wrings every piece of this environment out and gets the juice from it, harvesting down to the last drop. I can't say the same thing about the training facility.
Oh, yeah. I like bits and pieces of the training facility, but it does feel like it's too long. And then the water treatment facility feels like it just wasn't fleshed out enough, or they didn't have enough time to cook it. But like, train is the best. I kind of liked the training facility, but now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm kind of like, man, we were really there for a long time, and the lab was kind of shit because we weren't there for a long time, and it had a lot of really dumb puzzles and just really awkward split back and forth between Billy and Rebecca. And then water treatment, also the separation between Billy and Rebecca. And really, I don't know. Man, maybe I really did only like the train.
Feels like it's been pulled back, and a lot of the progression here
that's what I was talking about,
meaningless and
with Resident Evil Revelations.
Like busy work. Of course, it's all in the interest of survival, of escape.
Survival.
But it almost doesn't feel like there's a clear goal in mind until the later half of the game. There's, of course, gameplay goals, but an overarching story goal just doesn't feel as present.
Oh, that's true. Rebecca's literally like, the whole reason she's on the train in the first place is to find Billy. And then the train takes them to the training facility. But I didn't even think to question it just because I knew the story of Resident Evil already. Rebecca and Billy, the whole goal for them should just be to escape and to survive. And that's it. But they just never talk about it. Oh. I didn't even think about that. Whoa, that sucks.
Our general goal for the training facility is to get 3 tablets, each of which contain one of the 3 Umbrella Company core tenets: obedience, discipline, and unity.
Which I didn't even know about that door until way later in the game, because it's locked behind the dudes with the swords. So you can't even see that that's your overarching goal until way later. So that didn't even dawn on me.
Before we can do this, though, we have to make our way through the labyrinth that is the training facility, unlocking various areas of the place and exerting our presence over this environment.
Yeah.
We can do this
Mystical
by
Martian,
working
welcome
our
in.
2 characters like a team.
What's up, Praise?
Rebecca has to head to an upper floor of the facility
vibing.
and solve a puzzle involving a giant clock.
Mansion part was nice, but the last part was the worst. You think so, Ignatius? I don't know if the last part was the worst to me. I think I was frustrated by the frog, but maybe I just liked the environment but didn't actually like being there. Maybe that's what it was. I think the lab was my least favorite because it felt like there were leechmen everywhere, you know?
Umbrella had a specific code for this clock, the time 8:15. Grabbing a facility key with Rebecca
there
and
it
Billy
is.
once again
Centipede.
working together seems to disturb a
Thank you for the
massive
follow, Wookman.
giant centipede that uses the facility as its home. This is our second boss battle of the game.
I hate
and
this
we must
thing.
contend with this monster as it holds Rebecca in its clutches.
This thing
We
is
basically
such a
just
piece of
pump
shit.
it full of bullets, and if those run out, we can actually defeat it with a knife. Most of the bosses in the game don't really pose much of a challenge outside of maybe the final one.
I mean, I died to this because I ran out of ammo and it kept hitting me every time I got closer and I ran out of healing items because Rebecca had them all.
After
I'm just
defeating it,
saying.
we can retrieve a key that will allow us to access new areas of the facility.
I'm just saying.
In some of these new areas, we can find small pieces of statues, like the body of a white statue and its wings that are found hidden in a book.
I did like that.
These
The
2
scale.
statues, a white one and a black one, must be completed and placed on 2 scales. This will allow us access to an underground part of the facility that we need to get to before we can actually get the tablets that we need to progress. While we move through the facility and find...
I will also say, I think it's just me complaining and nitpicking. Remake also had this problem. If you ever had to like pick something back up, I wish you had the option of just combining it like from your inventory. Because there are a couple times where like you'd have to put something down with Resident Evil 0 and then pick it back up and combine it with something. But you always needed an inventory space to do it. And one of the examples is like if you were making Molotovs and you had a full inventory, but you had bottles in your inventory and you tried to pick up gas, you didn't get the option to combine it. So you had to drop something else, then pick up the gas, then combine it with the bottles, then pick up the item that you dropped. And I was like, you know, like the game was smart enough to do that with herbs, that you could pick them up or combine them, but not for other items. And it always confused me as to why.
In these parts, we can read a note from the assistant director that
Gonna
talks
say,
about
all the Resident Evil games
Albert
have been good to
Wesker
me.
and William
Yeah.
Birkin. At
I
this
love the
point,
franchise.
They were
It's one of my
new
favorite.
trainees brought to the facility, and the assistant director planned to use their
One of my
competitive
favorite.
nature against them. By pitting them against each other, he thought he could make them better than they would be alone.
I bet he probably made them better enough to want to kill them.
We can also find a diary from the director of the facility, James Marcus, who talks about finding the original progenitor virus.
Yep.
This is the blueprint that was used to create the T virus.
I think this is the first time that the progenitor is talked about, isn't it? Or was it talked about in 1 remake as well? It may have been, I don't remember.
was working with Spencer to develop this, but Spencer was more interested in developing the business around the virus rather than the actual research itself. This obviously created a rift between the two of them, but Marcus had combined the progenitor virus with the DNA of leeches to create the T-virus, and planned to use this creation to gain the upper hand. Spencer eventually interfered with his research and started to send people to steal the work.
First in here, that is, got it.
That was Marcus's suspicion.
Yeah. Spencer's like, all right, guys, you're going to go undercover in Marcus's facility. I want you to steal all of his company secrets and report them back to me. But if you ever think about double-crossing me, I'll put you in my mansion and do experiments on you and your family. Real story.
Gaining both statues and completing them will slide open the painting of James Marcus, revealing an underground passage to the facility behind it. Spiders abound downstairs, filling the hallways and threatening us with their poison spit.
Only enemies in the entire freaking game that can poison you. And I got hit by the poison acid spray like 3 times while I was down here and didn't get poisoned. And I'm kind of like, why have an enemy type that can poison you? Like, at all. I hate the poison attribute in Resident Evil. It makes me mad. It makes me upset. Dumb. I hate it.
In a nearby room, we can boost Rebecca up into a vent, and she ends up in a torture chamber filled with gore and viscera. We can tinker with the power box here, which allows the door to this enclosed
this took me
room
so long to figure
unlock,
out.
but we quickly see the mystery man watching Rebecca in this room. At this point, he unleashes the hounds upon us, or rather the monkeys, a new enemy type that we'll contend with in Resident Evil 0.
Ooh. I wonder, what do I dislike more, the monkeys or the leech men? Because they're both pretty terrible. So cute and filled with hatred. That's crazy. I feel like that's what the first movie was based around. The CG movie? Or like the live action movie? Because the live action movie, I think, is just, they tried to do their own thing.
Rebecca is immediately attacked.
Because I think it came out before this and remake.
We see Wesker and Birkin once again. They seem to think they know who the mystery man is, but they don't tell us quite yet. Wesker plans to leave.
Okay,
it's time for him to lure the members of STARS into the Arclay mansion. He wants to get the combat data from the BOWs, and Birkin plans to stick around and self-destruct the facility to cover it all up. It seems like a bad place for this cutscene to occur, because Rebecca is still dangling by a thread in the other room. As Billy...
Yeah, it's like all the tension of like, man, we gotta go rescue Rebecca now. Actually, let's go check in on Wesker and William Birkin. And it's like, isn't Rebecca still hanging on for dear life? Also having to rescue Rebecca again after having to save her from the freaking centipede. And for me, we had to rescue her from the room with the ice pick.
We have to
rescue that with Billy. I actually can't remember now. Anyway,
her and make a mad dash through the facility to get her location as quickly as we can.
And then if you're stupid like me, not knowing where she was made it very stressful.
On the way, we must contend with the newly released undead monkeys.
They're so annoying.
This is probably the first of Resident Evil Zero's enemies that are incredibly annoying. The game in general has pretty bad enemy design.
Yeah.
The monkeys are very strong and they're super quick. It's almost impossible to approach them with a strategy in any way. They're almost like zombie dogs in that they jump and run at us, but it's much harder to interrupt their jump animation.
That's why it's like you have to shoot them from afar or get really lucky with like crits, or maybe have a shotgun and get like a cluster of them. Because the shotgun did help take care of them, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to use a shotgun on the monkeys. Like, that's terrible, you know?
The plague
Micah, thanks for
crawlers,
the
which are
follow.
like mutated cockroaches or some form of insect.
Did he say plague crawler?
Plague crawlers.
Plague crawler? Wait, that's such a badass name. What the hell? I didn't know that's what they were called.
Which are like mutated cockroaches
gross,
or some form of insect.
Super gross.
Are also difficult to contend with. You can easily lock them in an animation by shooting them as long as you're standing just off to the side of their body, but this is almost impossible in most areas of the game because the areas that you contend with them in are generally so small and narrow.
I did not know about that. Wow.
There's an even more annoying enemy
for all
that
enemies.
will fight.
I actually like design wise, I didn't hate these because these do look creepy and scary, and like the arms they have kind of have blades on them. So I was like, oh, you know what? This is kind of creepy. Like I'm down for this being just it's a fucking enemy. And as soon as you get like a shotgun, it's like a little bit easier to deal with them rather than a pistol.
Fight soon, but before we get to that, we rescue Rebecca from falling down an endless pit. After we save her, Rebecca gets another radio call from Enrico. He's somehow still concerned about locating Billy in all this.
It's so unrealistic, dude. He's literally like, man, there's zombie monsters everywhere and half my team is dead or missing. Priorities, man. Where's that Billy Cohen motherfucker? I bet he's the one that did this. I knew it. I smelled an evil scientist. That motherfucker.
Like, there's a pretty bad zombie outbreak.
Yeah.
Not sure that locating the prisoner should be the biggest of your worries right now.
If anything, I feel like it would be just safe to assume that he's dead, considering they found his prison transport toppled over and the guards that were escorting him also dead and zombified.
You should probably be concerned about the newly created zombie monkeys that are about to be set loose upon the world. Just my 2 cents. Rebecca doesn't tell him that she's with Billy, and this act of kindness...
Does he even know what's going on in this place? This place, I don't think so. But, like, it's such a... Oh, my God, there's such a weird continuity thing that happens later. Because, like... Okay, so... Enrico somehow ends up here-ish. You know? Enrico kind of ends up in this area, but the only time we ever actually physically see him is the elevator scene right before Rebecca has to fight the proto-tyrant by herself. And while normally I would be like, oh, cool, we get to see Enrico, it's the last time we ever see Enrico. Genuinely. And from there... he goes to the normal mansion and then somehow ends up in the underground of the original mansion. And I'm like, how? Like, there's like a serious like jump in position and logic. And it's like, I have no idea how he got there. It's crazy. It does not, unless there's some sort of connection between this facility and the other mansion that Enrico found that we didn't and isn't in the original game. I don't know how he got there. And this game does not make it makes it harder to believe that he actually got there. It feels like he's in the middle of a normal manhunt while everyone else is in a horror film. True. How did Enrico find out about there being a traitor in stars? I have no idea. Because it's not like any of that information's here. All of this stuff is about Marcus. And Marcus's, all this shit got fucked up like 15 years ago. You know?
Touches him. Rebecca decides to ask him what really happened, if he is actually, you know, a huge mass murderer or not. We see a flashback to Billy's time in the armed forces.
I get that better now.
His team was searching for some guerrilla forces in the jungle.
I definitely get that better now.
In the woods,
I guess I just wasn't thinking about it before.
Survived.
But it's like
when they found the group,
easier to talk about it in that
regard.
regard.
False information, and they were ordered to attack a village of innocent civilians. His captain did this, but Billy seems to have stopped him and been blamed for the murders.
Yeah, because they always need a fall guy, you know?
Rebecca wants to know if he actually killed those people.
Oh, of course he did.
Billy just responds and says, hey, can't judge me. You promised.
Forget about it. Doesn't matter anymore. That was then, this is now. Besides, you said you wouldn't judge me.
Rebecca...
I feel like this line is like they're trying to like make Billy come off like he's a badass. Or like he's living with the guilt or something along those lines. And I'm kind of just like, I wish Billy would have been like, no, they framed me for it. And like, obviously Rebecca comes to that conclusion on her own because of the ending of the game where she takes off his dog tags and is like, well, Lieutenant Billy Cohen is officially dead. But like, You said you wouldn't judge me for killing 23 people? I don't know, man. That's all.
Realizes that the zombies attacked the van in the woods, and Billy wasn't actually
like trying to add mystery.
It's
not
either.
worth it though.
But Billy will either be killed at the hands of his superiors or sentenced to a life of running from them forever.
Yeah.
With the group back together again, we can finally gather the 3 tablets that we need to progress to the next area.
Also ironic because it's the military that are looking for him, because it was an MP van that got flipped over. Man, I don't know.
While searching for them in the underground, we can find a note
written off or ignored.
Who was succumbing to the virus.
I'm sure he told like his superiors that he didn't do it. He was absolutely set up for that. They absolutely set him up. 100%. But yeah. Do I gotta play Resident Evil 1 to follow the story? Do you mean 1 or negative? I see you typed -1. What do you mean by that? Dragonfly, thanks for the follow. Just like stars. I mean, stars would make sense too. Okay, now I'm not sure. I don't know anymore.
A note that's ending might actually rival the famous Itchy Tasty.
Take praise.
Dennis gone, I go. Hungry.
Take care. Goodbye.
Downstairs, we can find the Unity tablet. We can find another outside of the front entrance, and the final one in a deep passage of rooms off to the side of the building. This part of the building is where we're introduced to the most annoying enemy in the game by far, the leech monsters.
I feel like you fight 1 or 2 before this, but I do agree. I left you a present in the fan art channel. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh! Can I show this on screen? I think I can show this on stream. Yippee! Orders, thanks! Okay, first of all, I could go for a cup of coffee. Second of all, wooded mountainous areas and a cup of coffee and being like isolated from everybody, but still having internet. Sign me the fuck up. It reminds me of this time that I was in North Carolina celebrating my sister's graduation from college, and we rented like an Airbnb that was like on a cliffside, and it was like 2 or 3 a.m. the day after, like the day of the graduation. We were all kind of just like enjoying ourselves, vibing, thriving, and I ended up having a cigar with my brother, and we're kind of just like chilling there. It was like in silence, just having a cigar, looking out over the horizon. That's what this reminds me of. It's pretty dope. I like it. Thank you so much. Aye. Okay.
These are similar to the first enemy that we fought in the train.
Oh, but
they
so
kind
much
of have
worse.
Extending limbs like the Bandersnatch from Code Veronica.
Yeah, but they suck.
Except that we have to kill them in a very specific way.
Fire.
If we kill them with fire, Molotovs, or grenades, then they'll just fizzle out and die.
Yep.
If we kill them with regular weapons, then the top half of their body is destroyed and they swell up and explode, dealing massive damage to us.
I did not understand why this was a thing. I genuinely don't get why they thought this needed to be a thing with the self-destruct thing. Because there was a point where like I was playing as Rebecca and I was like, oh, I'll just use the Magnum to kill this thing. And because everything is so claustrophobic and hard to move in, you could like bait this to happen, but then you wouldn't be able to run away because it would just run at you and it wouldn't start the explosion process until it got close to you. Man. You can see the clouds passing beneath you. Oh, I think I did see that. Red. That's really cool. Bye, Jungos. Mwah. Take care. You know, it sounds so lovely. We'll get coffee for everybody. It'll be a nice time. I'll just, so long as I get a box of cigars, okay? I want some cigars too.
This isn't a problem in theory, like most of the issues with Resident Evil 0.
It is a problem.
It is a well-intentioned addition. Having to mechanically work around being damaged by an enemy is fine, but if resources are scarce, then you can't work around this.
Yeah.
You have to eat the damage, try to avoid it, or trick the game by leaving the hallway before the enemy explodes.
Oh. I didn't know you could do that.
So that it still thinks the enemy is dead. It's just a very annoying type of enemy to fight.
I agree.
In contrast to other enemies from the series, we don't have to think our way around it. We just either have enough resources to contend with it,
oh my God,
or we don't. Once we gain all 3 tablets,
it's always
we can
massive
place these in
damage
the
too. Like you could be in fine, get hit with the explosion, and it puts you in danger. And it's like, that is an insane amount of damage that you're getting hit by there. That's crazy. I hate that.
Story. This actually prompts us to switch to disc 2 of the game.
Disc 2?
And we immediately see a giant phallic object shrinking into
A giant what?
disc 2 of the game, and we immediately see a giant phallic object.
What? What? I don't think I ever would have called this a giant phallic object. Huh? I'm gonna need some help on this one.
Object shrinking into the ocean.
Oh, shrinkage. It all makes sense now. They didn't know about shrinkage, guys.
Inserting the tablets into the panel has moved the observatory and now allows us to access the laboratory across the bridge.
That's crazy.
Heading over here, we
Roy,
can
what's
enter
up?
a church with one character,
Hey.
and we are immediately attacked by a giant bat boss.
Yeah, I really disliked this because I had just spent so many resources trying to even get this to happen. So I went into this fight, I think, with no healing whatsoever and only a little bit of ammo for Billy. He barely had enough to last in this fight.
Now, I know a lot of people had trouble with this boss and do consider it one of the worst enemies in this entry, but I didn't really experience that. The main issue is that the giant bat summons other smaller bats,
Yep.
and the auto-aim in Resident Evil 0 will lock onto those instead of the boss you're trying to shoot at.
Yep.
You can pretty easily get around this, though, if you just wait for him to fly at you before aiming.
That's what I
thought
did, but it made the fight super frustrating. I watched a speed run for it, though. You can apparently stand literally like right here, like where the subtitle is, and he'll keep coming at like a specific angle, and you can stun lock him, which is crazy.
This thing with both the shotgun and
It
the
drove me
grenade
batty.
launcher,
Mods, ban them.
and didn't really have an issue. Once this church is cleared out, we can continue forward. But what's that? We need to do so by getting into that massive hole in the ceiling? Well, the only way we could do that is with the hook shot. That's right. Remember that item that we used literally once all the way back on the train? Yeah, we have to use it again, and we have to use it a lot in this section of the game. This is where Resident Evil Zero's item management system rears its ugly head once again. First of all, if you didn't know that you were going to have to use the hook shot again, then you probably just left it all the way back at the place where the train crashed.
Which I brought it into the mansion hall, so I did have to run back here, but that was it.
Which means that you're going to have to run all the way back into the training facility and go grab it.
Which means you have to go through a couple rooms of monkeys, which have now replaced other enemies in those rooms, and it put Billy into danger status. I'm so lucky that I didn't soft lock there and get bodied.
Which is annoying, but it isn't detrimental. The other problems with changing areas in this game is that we're about to be heading through an elevator and going to an underground lab.
Yep.
But since there's no train crash here, the game doesn't automatically transport our items from the training facility to this new area.
And the other frustrating part of it especially is that it is behind, like, I swear to God, there's like 17 loading screens to get there. And it's just, it would take so long to ferry everything. And then you eventually just come back here anyway with the, when you get to the water treatment facility. God, it's such
This
a pain in the
means
ass.
we're also going to have to run back with free inventory spaces and transport everything to the next area like pack mules. This is, once again, a huge downside to not having item boxes. You would also think that because we can just leave items on the ground, that it wouldn't be a big deal, that we just transport everything. But it still is, because there's a limit that each area has on how many items we can leave there.
Yes! He finally talked about it. This is one of my least favorite things. Because, like, I used the mansion hall, or the training facility main hall, as, like, my centralized hub of dumping everything. But I found out, like, not even halfway into the training facility, that I maxed it out and I couldn't do anything else. And I was like, why? Like, what's the point of adding a limit to how many things I can put on the floor? Like, I can look at the floor and it's like, I could fit so much more on the floor. What the hell?
I'm not sure if this is because of a technical limitation that the systems at the time had, or if it's just because the team didn't want the areas getting so cluttered that you couldn't pick stuff up.
I'm going to say it's probably... I want to say that it's a technical limitation, but honestly, I think the GameCube could have handled it. We saw some pretty crazy stuff going on in the GameCube version. Like, look at what happened with like Luigi's Mansion, which is a launch title for the GameCube, with the boos leaving the rooms and the game needing to know that a boo is in the next room and keep track of its HP count. And sometimes it would go between floors. I don't think it was a GameCube limitation problem. I think this was a developer intended thing, and it just makes the game significantly worse because of it.
But it's there. This further scatters.
I'm glad you're taking notes, Bun. This will be on the test later.
Prevents you from creating your own item boxes.
Also, be very important when we play through when we play through Luigi's Mansion, because I can play it on the Switch 2 when my Switch 2 shows up. Yippee!
But not to mention the fact
one of my
that
favorite
breaking
GameCube
up
games.
this section of the game by forcing the player to run back and grab all the stuff that they left in the previous hub area is just general bad game design.
Absolutely.
The player has the option to just leave it all there, but at this point, each character has handguns. We have a shotgun and a grenade launcher that we need to take with us.
Not to mention there's the hunting rifle as well if you decided to keep that with you from the train, which I didn't. I got rid of that shit almost immediately because it's only 2 shots, you know? What's up, Leary? I never played Luigi's Mansion. Whew, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. I love Luigi's Mansion. It's basically Resident Evil, but with Luigi and ghosts. It's so good. The fact that the guns just take up all your space. Yeah, like look at this. Shotgun, 2 spaces. Hook shot, 2 spaces. It's not here, but the grenade launcher also is 2 spaces. It's not here, but the hunting rifle is also 2 spaces. And the grenade launcher has 3 different ammo types. You've got explosive, you've got acid, you've got flame rounds, and then both characters have handguns, so that's 2 more slots for each, and ammo. So you need ammo for the handgun too, not to mention healing items or key items that you would need for like doing puzzles. Man.
Handguns. We have a shotgun and a grenade launcher that we need to take with us.
I hate it
as
here.
well as the hook shot, which we'll need
Just got a taco
underground
ad.
so that we can progress forward. That's 8 of our 12 total inventory spots taken up just by weapons or key items that we need.
Yup. Wow, that's crazy. Imagine that.
That's not to mention the key items that we'll pick up in the upcoming area.
Yep.
Healing items and ammo for those weapons. This creates a no-win scenario for the player.
It was so
where
bad.
They either leave behind valuable items under the fear of the tedium that awaits them, or they struggle through the boredom of backtracking and managing their inventory for the next half hour.
So I had a weird combination because I did a lot of exploration in my first playthrough, and I was trying to like get as many different things as I could. One of the things that I went around trying to find is I had like this extra key that I couldn't figure out how to use. So there's so many situations where like I was running through the mansion trying to find like a room that I missed or like a thing to investigate that I missed to use the key on. And when I eventually found it, I left that room with like 4 more items. So before even coming down here, I was bogged down with nothing. And then after my trip to the mansion and coming back here again, I think I went into this next area with Rebecca in orange caution, Billy at 100% status fine, but like no spare ammo, not a single healing item, and my inventory already super bloated from the hook shot, the weapons, and everything. And I was miserable, dude. And that's why I like the bat fight at this point also made me really mad, because I was like, oh man, I finally got items. I had to use all of them in the bat fight.
Regardless of
Shit
which
sucked.
poison we pick, we can head down into the elevator underneath the church.
Yeah.
Inside of a library, Rebecca and Billy will be separated once again.
Wow,
as one of them will have
surprise.
to head upstairs with the hook shot.
Wow, the hook shot again. Wow, that's crazy. I also sent Billy upstairs.
There's another sort of dumbwaiter here that we can use to pass items back to Rebecca downstairs. We eventually have to do this with a sample of the leech DNA,
Man,
so that
bad
Rebecca
game
can
mechanics
create
really
a
fuck
key
shit
that
up.
will
Yeah,
allow
seriously.
her access to a room downstairs.
I even got to a point where Rebecca's inventory was too bloated, because like obviously I wanted to keep her with the grenade launcher, so she had at least a decent weapon, or the shotgun. I can't remember which I had her with. I think it was the grenade launcher. Yeah, because I had to kill a leech guy. But so I had her with a grenade launcher, ammo for the grenade launcher, so that's 3 slots, a pistol, and ammo for the pistol. So she had 5 of her 6 inventory slots already taken up and just waiting down there. I'm like kind of surprised that the people playtesting this game were like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm gonna be real. Man, the hookshot should have been Billy's special item instead of the lighter. I agree. I think that actually fixes so much that's wrong with this game. It honestly would probably make this game be a solid B in my mind. Because right now I'm hovering C plus B minus. I think it would at least take it to a B.
Rebecca eventually finds a photo of James Marcus and determines that the mystery man must be his son or grandson.
The pain to go through that. I agree, Java.
They make their way through the facility and eventually get access to a cable car that they determine must be their way out.
I also said this before, but as I've been revisiting through this retrospective, I'm realizing that Resident Evil 0 kind of feels like a Frankenstein monster of a lot of things from Resident Evil 1 remake, which obviously it's on the same engine, and Spencer Mansion versus Marcus Mansion, and the Resident Evil 3 callouts that I talked about with the Dead Factory versus the water treatment facility and things like that. This is literally the cable car thing in Resident Evil 2, isn't it? Like the same concept where it takes you down to like a lab. Isn't it like the same concept? I feel like it's the same exact thing. I'm just saying.
Once we get this thing running, though, Billy is attacked and he falls over the rail.
There's a cable car that does that. Yeah,
separated
might be the same
again,
cart.
And Rebecca,
definitely not the same cart because the cart is under the RPD in Raccoon City. But it's probably the same idea.
Will have to head down the cable car alone to rescue him.
Also, frickin' Billy can't take a monkey. Rebecca gets slashed by it, gets up, does not actually take damage. And wait, I was so pissed. I was so pissed at this point in the game because all these puzzles in this section sucked. It was garbage. I hated it. It was so frustrating. Billy, at this point, he had more open inventory slots, and he was more of my pack mule than Rebecca was because Rebecca needed to like transfer key items and things like that. So we finally do this. And I had the foresight of like, man, I haven't found the Magnum yet, but I found a bunch of Magnum ammo. Billy had all of my Magnum ammo at this point just because he had more inventory slots. You lose Billy here, you enter the cable car, and the Magnum's right there. Where in the past 2 times that there was a character separation, the game punished me for leaving weapons with Rebecca. When we fought the centipede, I soft locked because Rebecca had the grenade launcher and she immediately was useless because she got grabbed. So that was my first death, was with the centipede for that reason. And then the second time, Billy had like shotgun ammo, but he didn't have a handgun when he had to go save her, and there was just a bajillion monkeys in the way, and I was like, well, I don't want to waste the shotgun ammo because it's monkeys. And again, made the mistake of not giving him enough weaponry to get through all the monkeys. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that Billy's kitted, that he's got the shotgun, he's got ammo for the shotgun, he's got ammo for his handgun, and he's got the Magnum ammo in case he finds the Magnum. And then immediately I'm punished for this. Almost in the same way that happens in Code Veronica when you switch from Claire to Chris and then Chris to Claire and then back to Chris again. And I'm like, I was pissed. I was so mad because almost immediately after this is Rebecca's fight with Tyrant. And she's by herself. So I almost didn't have enough ammo because I think I was like 1 or 2 shots. Like I had like 1 shot of Magnum ammo left. It's crazy.
Taking the cable car down, we actually find ourselves in a facility that looks eerily similar to the one that we enter in Resident Evil 2.
I just said that. I wrote the script. I wrote the script.
You can even see the same turntable layout and the
exactly. I wrote the script.
Passageway where we are attacked by Mr. X.
Oh my God.
I believe it actually is the same facility. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I guess it doesn't really much make sense since there's already an outbreak here before Resident Evil 2.
So it is a different facility that is under the Marcus training facility. Because the Marcus training facility was a separate installation rather than just the Spencer Mansion. And then there's also another one of these under RPD. So there's 3 labs total. Marcus's lab, which is this and this whole area. The Spencer lab and Spencer Mansion, and then the one under RPD. So it's just that there's 2 separate ones of these. Because they're not even close together because it's in RPD. Can't believe we're just watching Roy's alt. Listen, I'm your favorite, aren't I?
But I guess that's what happens when you try to make
crazy.
prequels. As Rebecca tries to...
Oh, yeah, I had to... Because Rebecca's inventory was fucked here, too, I had to drop 30 handgun ammo that the room locks you off from. And I had to drop 30 handgun ammo that I couldn't come back to. And that 30 handgun ammo would have been hella useful, bro. I'm just remembering it because it was shining like right here. So I don't remember what this item is. I think it's like the battery for the elevator. I dropped 30 handgun ammo here so I could pick that up. I was so mad, dude. I was gonna throw.
As Rebecca tries to enter the
You know what I'm saying?
facility, she finally meets up with Enrico. He tries to get Rebecca to come with him so they can head to an old research mansion that Umbrella uses.
I don't know how he knows about that. I don't know where he came from. I don't know how this connects to Resident Evil 1. Enrico, what are you smoking? Enrico's the traitor. Fuck Wesker. Enrico's the traitor with this bullshit.
Rebecca tells him that she's going to go find Billy, and Enrico tells her to be careful before heading off.
That's unfortunate. If we go straight from here, we should arrive at an old mansion which Umbrella uses for research. Come on, let's go.
Wait, I've got to find Billy.
Billy Cohen? You mean you found that criminal?
You mean you found that criminal? Enrico, relax.
Yes, but we got separated and...
No point worrying about him. He won't make it.
Immediately. I remember laughing at this too.
Come on, let's go.
Sir, please. I need to find him. Don't worry, I'll catch up with you.
Rebecca... All right. Just be careful.
Bro, Enrico, I just don't get Enrico. Is that Johnny Bravo? Do the monkey with me. Come on. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I never saw him again.
That's the crazy part. So literally this is the last time that you see Enrico in Resident Evil 0. And he gets from here to the Spencer Mansion. How? We don't even see the Spencer Mansion until we leave from the emergency exit, which is deeper in the water treatment facility. So in my mind, I'm like, how the hell did Enrico get to the water treatment, or get from here to the Spencer Mansion and then get to the underground of the Spencer Mansion before Chris and Jill did any of the puzzles that let you get there? That's what blows my mind.
On the other side of this elevator, we are attacked by a tyrant, our next boss of this
He's on top
entry.
of it. There's a lot of
He's
footage
really
for
not
everything. I
that
don't get it.
difficult, and pretty similar to the tyrant that we would fight in Resident Evil 1. He mostly does large slashing attacks, but since we were just given a magnum pistol before this fight, we can easily take him down with that. On the way down the elevator, we see the mystery man watching Rebecca once again.
I hated that fight. It was because, again, you're in such a claustrophobic area, and he does these large swiping attacks that I'm like, all right, cool. I'm using all of my healing items and all of the magnum ammo that I just got. I think I actually had to kill him with a pistol shot.
With that. On the way down the elevator, we see the mystery man watching Rebecca once again. Leeches crawling across his screen.
Sucks ass.
He
Yeah.
doesn't.
Is there a direct path from the waterway to the mansion? I don't think so. Because it's not the waterway, it's the water treatment facility is what this like elevator section leads to, or leads from. Like we have this, This is an elevator that takes us back up closer to the lab, or a turnstile and cable car, whatever the bullshit is. But there's an elevator over here that goes just back up to the training facility. But it also goes deeper into the water treatment facility, which then has an emergency elevator, which then overlooks the Spencer mansion. So I don't know what Enrico's talking about. I have no idea where this entrance is that he's talking about. I don't know how he got to the Spencer mansion from here. I don't know how he got to the underground section in the Spencer mansion. Like, there's just so much shit that I'm like, Enrico, you lied. I don't know how you did this.
Doesn't say much other than a declaration that he will get
just
his
use the side door. Yeah, something
no
like that.
matter
Yeah, what a twist.
Pretty shortly after taking the elevator downstairs, Rebecca sees Billy being washed away by the torrent.
What was this? Was this a frog?
Downstairs, Rebecca sees Billy being...
Was it just a frog that hits him? And this is where I was like, why don't they just introduce Hunter Gammas here? This would have been sick. Hunter Gammas would have made so much sense here. What hits him? What hits him? He gets like launched. It's just a rock. It's just a rock. Literally just a rock. Because then you never see that enemy.
Washed away by the...
And the frogs are bright ass green. The frogs are bright ass green, so I don't think it's a frog.
Torrent. We have to save him by solving a puzzle that restores power to the dam. This will thankfully stop the
I think it was a shark. No, the sharks are in the Spencer mansion.
Water and prevent Billy from being dashed against the rocks. The two quickly find a ton of disposed bodies down here, test subjects for Marcus's research. At this point, the end game is in clear view, and our only goal is really to escape this place by any means necessary.
Maybe a leech. Yeah,
we move through the facility, dealing with hunters and a variety of different viruses.
There's a fucking frog! That's the frog that killed me. This is the exact room. It did the tongue thing. It grabbed Billy. This. I was right here, and it grabbed fucking Billy, and he got dragged all the way over here. Rebecca had no items. She couldn't do anything. She ran up and just watched as he died.
Created monsters. We
that.
eventually contend with the tyrant once again, which is a little more difficult since it's in a pretty enclosed space.
We stun locked the tyrant, actually. It was actually really easy.
But there's no new mechanics introduced here.
Yeah.
The two characters eventually get a key card and manage to enter the final area of the game.
Dale hunters they dispose
we face
of.
off with the mystery man from before, who reveals that he was actually Dr. Marcus this whole time. He says that 10 years prior,
you got it,
Spencer
dude.
had him killed for his research. Birkin and Wesker were the ones that did it, his own pupils. Since he was thrown into the water, one of his experimental leeches crawled into his system and created the beast that he has become. He wants to destroy Umbrella and enact his revenge upon the world.
Yeah.
Marcus begins vomiting leeches and transforms into a grotesque creation before our eyes.
Can I just say, though, Marcus, while not a great person, didn't want to, like, destroy the world. So Umbrella betrays him. Specifically, Birkin and Wesker betray him. And he's like, I'm going to get revenge on them, Umbrella, and destroy the world. And I'm like, why the world? What did the world do, homie? What do you mean? Like, why is revenge, like, going so far? What happened? Why are you just being a little bitch about this? You got murdered. So what? It's Resident Evil. Still want to know why the leeches are controlled by opera singing. There's a logical explanation for that.
The actual transformation of Marcus is actually insanely cool, but I'm really not a big fan of the resulting monster, especially when you compare it to the other bosses from the Resident Evil series.
Because it's just a giant leech man. It looks like shit, and it's a massive damage sponge. It was like 13 magnum shots, 6 grenade rounds, a couple shotgun shells, and that was it. There wasn't like a cool mechanic to avoid. There wasn't something to do in the room. It was quite literally, hey, hit this motherfucker with everything you got.
We blast him full of holes, and we have one final door to open.
I was kind of hoping there was a mechanic I missed. I was crossing my fingers that at this point they were going to be like, oh, and if you take him over here, this happens. It's just pump him full of bullets. Man.
Using 2 keys that have to be turned at the same time, Rebecca and Billy try to make their way out of this place. As they're taking the elevator to the surface, the Queen Leech monster begins crawling up the elevator shaft. We have to defeat this huge beast, but it's not possible with even the best firepower. Eventually, Rebecca realizes that the monster is sensitive to sunlight.
How? Why? I guess it was night when we got here, but yeah, whatever. I mean, they lose to heat, so maybe it's just the sun. She can't handle that UV. They need that. Listen, Shia and I are good with suntan lotion. We're good with sunscreen.
So we need to distract the thing while she tries to open the shutters around the room. This is actually a really cool fight, especially for
I missed the stream, but Roy, this game does not sound fun. It's still fun. It's just like going back in retrospective, it's a lot easier to point out the things that I dislike. And I'm probably moving this to a C+, just because there's more and more stuff that I'm like, ooh, that was frustrating.
Early in the series.
You know?
It reminds me of activating the rail cannon in
suck.
Resident Evil 3, except that we're not actually doing it. I kind of wish it put us in Rebecca's shoes for this fight instead of Billy.
Yeah.
But it's fine. We basically just shoot at the Queen over and over and try to take its attention away from Rebecca while she activates the handles around the facility.
That was literally
Once she does this, the light weakens the Queen, and Rebecca tosses Billy a revolver that she finds behind a crate. Billy gets to deliver his epic action one-liner.
Hey, Queenie! Feast on this!
I don't know how it caused that much destruction. I'm not gonna lie. Like, magnums are powerful, don't get me wrong, but like that is so much viscera and explosion from one bullet.
Say that this sequence made the—
like, look at that. Look how massive of a hole that is from a magnum shot. I feel like that is no. Also, where's the rocket launcher, man?
The entire game worth it, because it definitely didn't. But it's a pretty cool way to end.
Wait, let me hear that again.
The entire game.
What did he say?
I can't say that this sequence made the entire game worth it, because it definitely didn't.
I mean, Charo, it definitely didn't.
But it's a pretty cool way to end such a lackluster title. I also just have to praise the CG cutscenes for this game.
Oh yeah, they look great.
Because while Resident Evil was always very ahead of its time, this game just looks spectacular in most every place.
Absolutely.
There's so much detail here. With the exploding facility, you can see all the pieces of wood flying away.
Yep.
And even in the earlier cutscenes before our fight with the Stinger.
Yeah, like look at all the glass
flying away.
Look at all the glass
even in the
falling for
earlier
this.
cutscenes before our fight with the Stinger in the train, you can see the shards of glass as
It's
the
so cool.
chandelier falls. After this cutscene, we see Rebecca and Billy standing atop a cliff.
Wait a minute. How the fuck did the Scorpion get on the train? It mutated there? I don't think so. Did it? Marcus? I don't think he can move. That's something that big. I bought a ticket. I'm screaming. Bugs are fast. Yeah, but we're like miles away. Like, the only reasonable explanation is that it mutated there. But it couldn't have, because we found notes about its mutation already, Belmore. Oh my god, that's so... I just realized that. Holy shit, dude.
Billy finally frees himself of his cuffs, and Rebecca sees the Arclay mansion off in the distance.
There it is. And this is what I'm talking about! How the fuck did Enrico get from where we just went to here and then go underground immediately? Different Scorpion, true. Thank you for the super. There's a logical explanation for that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. How the fuck did Enrico get here? This is what I'm saying. We get this shot, and we're pretty close to the Spencer mansion. Enrico's just that guy. Enrico can suck my dick. How about that?
Taking them away so that she can give the official story that he died in these woods, and so he can live a life free of the crimes that he was wrongfully accused of. The two stand at attention before Rebecca leaves, and Billy whispers a quiet thank you under his breath. We see a foreboding shot of the mansion.
No, he gives a thumbs up. He gives like a really big cheesy thumbs up. Man.
Below as the events of Resident Evil are about to kick off.
That's true.
That marks the end of Resident Evil 0. And I can't say that I don't enjoy its final moments. The last action sequence, this great shot of Billy and Rebecca standing on the cliff with the sun blasting behind them. It's all pretty good, but the rest of the game just really doesn't live up to that.
Yeah.
And the ending does not justify the means. First of all, this story kind of feels like a step back compared to what we got in the last game, Code Veronica.
Gives the thumbs up. There it is.
Quite a bit in common.
There it is. There's the thumbs up. Sorry, I was looking for the thumbs up, you know? Oh my gosh. One thing I just noticed is morning in the ending, but night when RE1 happens. That means Rebecca stayed there the entire day. Yeah, she probably went there and like collapsed, or she was doing other research or looking for people. Yep.
In the last game, Code Veronica.
Yeah.
The two games have quite a bit in common when it comes to narrative. That game also tried to focus on the origin of the T-virus and the origins of Umbrella as a whole.
Yep.
It feels like both games are sort of dueling
big ass
for
nap.
a
Makes
canon
sense.
interpretation of the beginning of this series.
How's it
While
going?
Code Veronica focuses on the origins of the family that created the company, 0 focuses on the origins of the man that created the virus. But in my opinion, Code Veronica just does this concept better.
Agreed. Yeah, the Rockford facility and then the Antarctica base, I think, are significantly more well put together. Like the prison, the facilities, the mansion aesthetic that we get in Code Veronica. The only thing I can like not distinctly remember from Code Veronica is like some of the beginning of the Antarctic base. Yeah, I think Code Veronica did this better.
It has better characters.
Code Veronica also has its own share of problems. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Code Veronica is an amazing game, because that's also a low B, high C for me.
That develop an interesting world around this series. That's something that Resident Evil 0 quite lacks. A prequel, in my mind, should explain the foundation of this story.
Left more questions.
What does the world around the stories that we've already seen look like? Where did this all start? How did it begin?
Better, yeah.
And Code Veronica excels at that, making Resident Evil feel like it has an actual world, a true origin story. Resident Evil 0 doesn't really do this.
Yeah, because we basically get to the Marcus estate 15 years after all the bullshit happened. Like, people are just dead, right? Isn't it 15 years or was it recent? I actually can't remember. I think it was 15 years, wasn't it? I guess that wouldn't make as much sense if Wesker murdered him 15 years ago, because Wesker's in his 30s, not in his 40s. I can't remember how old. I can't remember the time gap, but I know it's like this facility has been down for a bit, and it's kind of the same thing when you get into the Spencer mansion. The virus has already like taken like its throes into like what happened. So
we're basically introduced to James Marcus during this game.
So it was killed 10 years ago. There it is.
I'll give it to them, has a little bit of depth. It was interesting to learn that he was manipulating Wesker and Birkin against each other, weaponizing their competitive nature to further his own research. This details a portrait of a man that will do anything to get further in his goals.
And that Birkin and Wesker are both kind of primed for like betrayal, because Wesker's on the side that betrays Birkin for the G virus. So also makes sense.
But this concept is
like
barely
years
fleshed
before the game
out
occurs. Yeah, exactly. And it's the same problem that it has with 1, is like we don't get to see how any of it actually happened. We're coming into the aftermath. It does the same exact thing that 1 did, but worse.
Story. We just have Marcus, whose identity is unknown throughout the entirety of the game. And in the last 20 minutes or so, we're told, actually, this is Marcus, and he's pissed because he wants revenge. Ooh. And then
Ooh, I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie, I agree. I'm not gonna lie, I agree. I think revenge plots like this, at least for Resident Evil standpoint, is kind of like, I don't think there's another Resident Evil plot that's revenge. Is it? It's kind of like revenge might be a side piece, but like, yeah, it's really petty.
we kill him, and that's it. This reveal probably should have come a lot sooner in the game so that we had time to understand who the villain actually was. Not to mention the fact that Wesker and Birkin are just sort of footnotes in this game.
I think they're just there for continuity's sake. You know, I'm going to be real. I don't think they're there for like any other reason than to be like, well, Wesker knew that this was happening and we want Birkin here so he can talk about the G virus. And that's it.
It feels like they were just included purely for reference purposes.
Yeah.
So that fans of the series could
I wrote the fucking script, dude.
go, hey, look, it's those guys. Yeah. They're really just on the outside of the conflict the entire time, constantly watching from behind screens, from afar, but and never really interfering outside of just setting the self-destruct to go off.
Well, Mother Miranda is less of revenge and still trying to get her daughter back. Evelyn is literally, I wanted a family. And that's it, you know? Yeah, but they're mostly looking for family. It's always about family. That's what it comes. Family.
There's really nothing added to their characters either, aside from the notes that tell us about their training. But honestly, their characters were developed more in the 2 Wesker reports than anything in Resident Evil 0. And
the Wesker reports were from not Umbrella Chronicles, Darkside Chronicles, or was it Umbrella Chronicles? The one where you play as Wesker during the events of 0, right? I think? Question mark? Anyway.
And the game just has an overall lack of story. Of course, this isn't
What's the Darkside? I'll take your word for it.
Series. The first 3 games in the series aren't overflowing with narrative. That was really only introduced once we got to Code Veronica. But Resident Evil...
Yeah, Code Veronica does have a lot of cutscenes.
0 returns to this less is more storytelling method, but does it far worse than any of those games did.
Damn.
We, of course, have the 2 main characters to talk about as well, Rebecca and Billy. Billy is an interesting enough character, and Resident Evil successfully subverts our expectations by revealing halfway through that Billy is not actually a cold-blooded killer, but a man who was wrongfully accused.
Which is great. I think it's the only development that you really need, because you go from being like, well, I don't really trust this guy, to, okay, now I really trust this guy, and he's just a good guy trying to do shit, and he's a badass, and he's kind of hot. You know? Rebecca doesn't really get any development except for like trusting him, I guess.
This, of course, makes us empathetic towards his plight and plants the player on his side firmly.
Yeah.
Outside of the alleged murders, though, he's not really that interesting. Most of the time that he is on screen speaking is just him talking about those events. He really only has that and nothing else to his personality.
Wait, that's so true. Most of the time, it's Rebecca having cutscenes or conversations, and Billy just saying, like, yeah, okay. Whoa, I didn't even think about that. That sucks.
I do like his character design just in general. The handcuffs hanging off his wrist.
I do like that.
The entire game, and this sick-ass early 2000s tattoo on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Rebecca, on the other hand, already has an appearance in 1 full game that gives her some background. And if you've seen my video on the first Resident Evil game, you'll know that Rebecca Chambers was my favorite character in that entry.
Do remember that. There it is!
Still is. So I was actually pretty excited to play this game because I wanted to see more of what they did with that character.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And I'm sad to say that it actually made me realize that Rebecca works better as a side character.
Wait, that's so real though. Cause she really doesn't get to do anything. She really doesn't. 0, she doesn't get to do anything, dude. It's always reactionary, and she doesn't actually get her own development. And then 1 just erases all of the progress that she would have had as a character. Man, like she gets rescued a bunch of times. She just betrays Enrico, or like tells him like, nah, like I'll be there later. Don't worry about it. I gotta go find Billy. You know, Cosmic Void Chaos, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders. My name is Roy Chiato, like a Macchiato. I'm a coffee-fueled bunny host with the Serious Bastard for voice acting. I absolutely love working out. We are finishing the retrospective of Resident Evil 0. We're almost done, so pull up a chair, kick your feet, let's have some fun.
Her appeal in the first game came from the fact that she was a plucky, sort of upbeat beacon of light in this dark tale.
And then she's not in remake. She's like, man, are we ever going to get out of here? Looks to you, you don't say anything. She just breaks down crying.
And while that isn't even overtly present here, she's just sort of a blank slate for the player to replace themselves with.
Yeah.
That whole character just worked better.
Same.
Trying
Oh my
to
God.
help the character
Bun, do you need a hug?
that
I got
we
you.
were actually playing.
Got you.
Part of that outlook came from the fact that in Resident Evil 1, Rebecca was the youngest member of STARS,
18.
and that she had never experienced anything even close to this.
18.
The remake introduced scenes that
Like
tried to
this.
show how she actually dealt with
Yeah.
things. So making a whole game that shows actually Rebecca has already dealt with arguably a worse version of the things that she's going through in the first Resident Evil game just doesn't really make sense.
It is. Yeah, it's like Zero didn't even happen, and like all of her character development is just gone. You know, or I just want to forget Rebecca. Literally, so I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. She was gone and missing. Resident Evil 0 and 1 were out. They were done. Rebecca had not returned to the franchise. They bring her back in Resident Evil Vendetta, which is one of the CG movies. It was like it's in the middle of the 2010s, like 2015 to 2018, one of those, like that time frame. They make her a researcher, which I'm like, you know what? I can see that. She was a medic, you know, she wasn't supposed to be there for combat, you know? So she's a medic. She's looking into cures for viruses and making sure that like global outbreaks don't happen again, because they keep fucking happening, and she's trying to stop that. And I'm like, you know what? Away from the action, I get that. She gets kidnapped and put in a literal fucking bride's gown, and she is dangled as like a damsel in distress the whole goddamn movie. If they didn't ruin her character before, they assassinated it in Vendetta. It's gross. I hate it. I already don't like Resident Evil Vendetta. It's really weird. Let me look it up. Hold on. Resident Evil Vendetta 2017 as well. Rebecca. So Rebecca's normal outfit. Oh wait, that's from Death Island. Let me see if I can get a full thing of the wedding dress. Wedding dress. Why is it so small? Why is the picture so small? That one cuts off her face. What is happening? Why are these Google searches terrible? Okay, this is probably going to be one of the best ones we can find. Look at this. It's literally a wedding dress. And she's just handcuffed to a chair. That's it. She gets kidnapped super early into the movie. Like, they even give her like these really overtly almost sexual angles too, that just look really weird. That's what I'm saying. Like, they just assassinate her as a character. Oh, so the main villain in Vendetta, his wife died, and Rebecca reminds him of his wife. So he is going to marry Rebecca and then forcibly change her into his dead wife, whose hand is still alive. Yeah. Yeah. It's not good. It's not good. Like I told you, assassinated Rebecca.
Of course,
Anyway,
this
go.
is more retcon nitpicking, but it begs the question, was this game really even necessary?
No,
well,
probably
I honestly
not.
think that the game would have worked better when it was first announced.
Strange.
When they
agree.
originally started development.
Yeah.
We hadn't moved so far past the original Raccoon City trilogy, but at this point, why do we really
yeah, 'cause
need
Code
to
Veronica
know
wasn't
what
out
Rebecca
yet.
was up to the day before Resident Evil?
We don't.
Also, why do we need to know that what she was up to was going through a Resident Evil level journey through an entirely different facility before she even met Chris in the mansion? It almost feels like it cheapens the story of Resident Evil 1 just a little bit.
Yeah, because then it's like, why wouldn't she just explain to Chris, hey, listen, because she meets Chris really early. You know, it's either during the Richard fight or when he gets into that save room. Or not Richard fight, when you find Richard outside of Jan's room. Literally, Rebecca could just be like, oh, hey, by the way, all of this is Umbrella's doing. Umbrella's the bad assholes here. Be careful, because there's more than just zombies. They also experimented on things like dogs. They made hunters. They fucked with some frogs, some spiders, some monkeys, some centipedes, some giant bats. So just be aware, be ready, you know, take these herbs. They helped me. You know, it's just
as a whole,
stupid,
I
dude.
obviously have a lot of issues with Resident Evil 0. Its systems are what I would
She didn't wanna bring
consider
down the vibes,
better
yeah.
on paper than they were in reality.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the item box is certainly a way to set yourself apart and try to disrupt the formula of the games that came before.
Yeah, no item
but
box is
it
rough.
flat out just doesn't work. It makes the game much more tedious than it needs to be. Not only that, but it makes a game in a series that is known for being quite clean
so
turn
much
out
handgun
really
ammo?
messy and disorganized. And not every game has to be organized. There are some projects that just thrive in the chaos, but it just doesn't really work here. The 2-character system that was introduced is technically impressive, but
Yeah.
it doesn't ever really feel like it gets to hit its stride in this entry.
It also doesn't offer you anything in terms of new info for any newer games, right? I think it's the first time we hear the word progenitor virus, which is like the source of the T virus, but I feel like it was also mentioned in a file in Resident Evil Remake. I could be wrong. I think someone said that it was the source of the progenitor, but like naming the original virus is kind of like whatever. Like you could have done that in any other game. You know, or just not mentioned it at all, because it matters in Resident Evil 5 and they could have just mentioned it there. Rebecca goes to do Resident Evil 1, so it's like there's nothing new for her. None of the other STARS members are in this game that like survive to later. Yeah, nothing of consequence happens, because Billy's never been brought up either. If Billy was in another game, I would probably say something. Then yeah, it's just nothing.
Maybe if they gave it another go at a later point, they could have
it's a
done
remake.
more interesting things with it.
Yeah.
But for most of the game, we're honestly just using both characters anyway.
Yeah.
The less powerful one being dragged along behind us like it's a really long escort mission.
Wow. I mean, Rebecca is weaker than Billy for some reason. He just knows how to shoot guns better and harder, I guess. He knows how to pull the trigger harder, you know?
This whole game just really
I
feels
hate that, dude.
chaotic.
It's so
like it's got a
stupid.
good skin of a Resident Evil game, but it just doesn't know what's supposed to go inside. The organs are in the wrong places. The heart is
That's
where
good.
the brain should be.
I like
and
that.
the intestines are twisted up in knots. I say this to mean that Resident Evil 0 looks fine from the outside,
I do like
but
that.
once you get your hands on it, you
Oof,
realize
yeah.
something is very wrong. On release, critics generally gave positive reviews to Resident Evil 0, though most still pointed out the issues with the new changes that the project made. In terms of gameplay, they did praise
the
its
trigger harder.
graphics
Yep.
and atmosphere, which were marked as a high point.
And this is water treatment facility. And this is what I was saying. Like, it gives me Dead Factory vibes, and it's what I really liked about it, but it felt rushed in some cases, and I didn't like the puzzles here.
Later reviews, like those for the HD re-release, were less kind and noted how dated the game felt years later.
Yeah.
The original game currently has an 83 out of 100 on Metacritic. The game sold well, though, shipping 1.25 million copies for the GameCube version,
That's pretty good.
showing that fans would still be there to purchase any new Resident Evil games.
True.
But 1.25 million was a small number compared to what the next entry in the series would bring in. That game would change
Resident
the series
Evil
forever,
4.
still being lauded as one of the best games of all time to this day. But we'll talk about that next time. Bye, Dad.
Oh, goodbye, son. So, the other thing that's probably worth mentioning in this regard, and I'll close the video now so I can go over. So obviously this is not the end of the franchise, and obviously there are more games that come out. There are more things that happen. Resident Evil 4 is the next game that is released on the GameCube. I think it came out in 2005? Question mark? I always forget. But regardless, the next game that we are playing together in this chronological re-look at the franchise in air quotes chronological order is Resident Evil 2. I do want to play Resident Evil Outbreak I did see a bunch of people mention it. The problem is I cannot play Outbreak without an emulator, and that's already kind of rough because I don't have a PS2. I don't have a PS2 copy of the game. And then I would have to also try and get to the PS2 online, which I don't think works anymore. And if I can't use the online, then I have to deal with the AI, which I heard is the worst way to play Outbreak. So it's like, if they get a port of that game anywhere with the online intact, I'm playing it. Absolutely. Or I'll just watch Bakba Soup and Maxi Loves play it. I would love to, though, because I've watched them play so many different scenarios, so many different times. But next for us is Resident Evil 2. And I mentioned this before, and I asked what everybody preferred. We actually already ran a poll about what everybody wanted to see. So next week, next Tuesday night, we are going to be doing Resident Evil 2, the original Resident Evil 2. I'll probably be playing the GOG version because the PS5 version is not out yet. I thought it was going to be out by now, so unfortunately it's not. So we're going to have to buy the GOG version. So we're going to buy the GOG version, and we're going to play Resident Evil 2 Classic or Original as Claire. So we're going to do Claire's first scenario, or Claire A, in Resident Evil 2 Original. It's not actually something I've played before in Resident Evil 2, even though I love Resident Evil 2 a ton. And then the week after that, same kind of time frame, we're going to do Resident Evil 2 Remake as Leon and his second scenario, or B scenario, whatever you prefer to call it. So that's how we're going to split it up. That way we get the story, we get everything mostly what it should be, and everybody gets what they wanted. And that is what the chat voted on. They wanted Claire Original and Leon Remake, which I'm kind of surprised. I thought it would have been the other way around, but maybe people are more fond of Leon than Claire, which is kind of funny. So we need that HD Leon. I think that's literally what everybody ended up saying, Belmore. This is because we want to look at Leon in the remake. That's why. I mean, yeah. But we're going to see him in Resident Evil 4 HD. You know? That's crazy. That's wild. Wild, black, inflatable arm falling tube, man. So that is the game plan. And then obviously after we finish Resident Evil 2, we are going to play Resident Evil 3 after that. But before we play Resident Evil 3, we'll watch the Resident Evil 2 retrospective from your favorite son, because they have videos all the way up to Resident Evil 4, including Code Veronica. So we'll do 2, then 3, then Code Veronica, and then 4, and go from there. So that'll probably last us like 2 months, because there's a lot of those to play. But guys, that brings us to the end of the stream. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate you guys vibing with me and going a little bit brain empty. It was definitely a long day today, and I really needed something like this where we could kind of just relax, yap about Resident Evil. And it's been fun exploring a new passion aside from just Power Rangers and being able to yap about videos and sit down and watch them. And I'm so thankful to your favorite son for letting me react to their content. So thank you again. I don't know if you ever watch my stuff, but hey, thank you for letting me do this. Yippee! So, all right, guys. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to continue with Super Mario Sunshine. I don't think we're going to be finishing it tomorrow, but we might take a little bit of a break after tomorrow, depending on how I'm feeling, just because I know Sunshine's long, but I wasn't expecting to get the Switch 2, and I want to play Luigi's Mansion, so we might take like a 2-week, 3-week, 4-week break for Sunshine so I can play Luigi's Mansion, because I love Luigi's Mansion. Anyway... I will see you guys tomorrow for Super Mario Sunshine, and I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye!